Chapter 1638. In Lifire City, the original governor of the central city regions, Xia Ho, disappeared. The three aristocrat clans also disappeared. Before this, when Di Tian held the banquet, he had clearly stated that he wanted to investigate the matters of the past and settle old scores. But at that time, no one expected Di Tian to be so tyrannical and decisive. Also, from the things that happened, the Lifire Empyrean didn't interfere at all. Xia Ho was clearly not Di Tian's opponent. The Lifire Empyrean didn't interfere in the conflict between Di Tian and Xia Ho. Xia Ho was clearly not Di Tian's opponent. Governor Xia Ho, whose name shook the central city regions for many years, didn't even have the strength to resist and was directly removed from his position by Di Tian. Right now, no one knew where he was. Not long after, the Lifire Empyrean sent an expert to take over the central governor's manor. This governor was named Sun Qian. He was a peak-stage immortal emperor who had cultivated for many years and was someone who had been by the Lifire Empyrean's side for a long time. He always had a smile on his face and seemed extremely amiable. On the second day after he took over, he immediately came to pay a visit to the Emperor Pavilion. Right now, the governors of Lifire City seemed to have come to a tacit understanding. If they wanted to stabilize their positions, they had to build up a good relationship with Di Tian. After all, which governor of Lifire City didn't have any weaknesses? What if Di Tian, the supervisory commander, wanted to do things seriously? After the matter with Xia Ho happened, Yin Qiu regretted it. So it turned out that it was useless for him to express his stance. Di Tian still did what he wanted to do and was extremely decisive. Yin Qiu had offended Di Tian for no reason, and in the future, he had to tuck his tail between his legs. If not, who knew if Di Tian would be jealous and deal with him like how he dealt with Xia Ho one day. After that, the Emperor Pavilion's development was naturally a matter of time. The Emperor Pavilion started to recruiting experts from all over the world. The treatment they offered was extremely good. After all, the Emperor Pavilion could afford it now. Just the amount of tributes the Emperor Pavilion saved was enough to nurture many experts. As the Emperor Pavilion expanded, they gradually returned the people of the other powers to them while their own people took over. As time flowed by, the Emperor Pavilion gradually gained control of the entire industry. Also, everyone knew that this was only the beginning. Just like what everyone expected, with the support of the Realm Lord and the exemption of taxes, in addition to Di Tian's position as the supervisory commander, no one in Lifire City dared to not open the door of convenience. In just a few years, the Emperor Pavilion has already become a hegemonic power. Their businesses expanded to the various regions of Lifire City, including the northern regions where Qin Wentian and the Jialan clan were located. The Jialan clan strongly supported Di Tian's arrival. They have always maintained a very friendly relationship with Di Tian, and it was the same for Di Tian as well. Jialan Chuyue would often go to the Emperor Pavilion to chat with Di Tian. In fact, the Jialan clan would even personally pay a visit, hinting at the relationship between Di Tian and Jialan Chuyue, wanting to form a marriage alliance. However, although Di Tian's relationship with Jialan Chuyue was very close, he still acted dumb with regards to the hints from the Jialan clan and didn't express his stance. This caused Jialan Chuyue to look at him with a look of hidden bitterness in her eyes. Di Tian couldn't bear to see such a beautiful woman looking at him with such a gaze. His hatred for the Jialan clan gradually grew weaker. Naturally, this was an exception for the Jialan monarch. He wouldn't forget Yi Qinyu, who was still imprisoned in the lifelong Saint Hall just because of Jialan Chuyue's friendly actions. If it wasn't for the Jialan monarch, many things wouldn't have happened. Every time the Jialan clan exchanged flirtatious glances with Di Tian, the people of the Mo clan were extremely anxious. They urged Mo Junyi to get closer to Di Tian. They mustn't let Jialan Chuyue beat them to it. Mo Junyi was just a young miss of a noble clan. How could she bear to take the initiative to stick close to Di Tian? At most, she would act as if they were close to each other. Time flowed by day, the Emperor Pavilion changed day by day. However, to the vast Lifefire Palace, this little bit of change wasn't enough to reach the apex. As long as the Lifefire Palace was still sitting in its original position, the Lifefire Palace would forever be the same as before. There wasn't much of a difference. Compared to Di Tian and the Emperor Pavilion's high-profile rise, Qin Wentian, who was also famous in Lifelong City back then, was much more low-profile. He was the same as before, silently cultivating, as though he wasn't interested in anything happening in the outside world. The Jialan clan also sent people to invite Qin Wentian several times, wanting to ease their relationship and resolve their conflicts. However, they didn't even manage to see Qin Wentian. Some people guessed that maybe Qin Wentian wasn't in the governor's manor at all and had been tempering himself outside. After all, no one in the northern city regions would dare to cause trouble. With Qin Wentian's fame and the example of the ancient river auction house from back then, in addition to the fact that the Jialan clan didn't intend to continue fighting against Qin Wentian, who would still dare to cause trouble. Naturally, every 10 years, when the Lifefire Empyrean came to pay tribute, Qin Wentian would always appear on time. Compared to Di Tian, Qin Wentian gave the Lifefire Empyrean a lot of face. Just like in the lifelong Saint Hall, his performance was remarkable. Even if the Lifefire Empyrean was suspicious of him, it wouldn't be good for him to do anything to Qin Wentian. Maybe, the thoughts between him and Qin Wentian would fade away with time. Regardless of Di Tian or Qin Wentian, from the Lifefire Empyrean's point of view, their behavior was very normal. Di Tian was praised by the Realm Lord and enjoyed special privileges in the Lifefire Palace. It was very normal for him to act in a high-profile manner, and there were even times when Di Tian didn't give the Lifefire Empyrean any face. The Lifefire Empyrean would also do things according to Di Tian's personality. In any case, there was no true conflict between the two of them. Even if Di Tian really obtained the Realm Lord's favor in the future and stood at a certain height, it wouldn't affect the Lifefire Empyrean at all. Hence, the Lifefire Empyrean was very lenient towards Di Tian. Di Tian couldn't help but to admit this point. Qin Wentian was also very normal. Because of his relationship with Yi Qianyu, in addition to the fact that Qin Wentian went against the Lifefire Empyrean's orders to head to Lifelong City, Qin Wentian was very clear that the Lifefire Empyrean was wary of him. Hence, he kept a low profile and didn't show any sharpness. The river of time would never stop flowing. Unknowingly, tens of years passed. In these tens of years, Lifefire City was still the same as before. However, a new supreme power was born in Lifefire City, the Emperor Pavilion. After tens of years of development, the Emperor Pavilion had truly grown into a terrifying power. The businesses of the Emperor Pavilion could be found all over Lifefire City, they weren't limited to a single region. They had a terrifying supply chain in each of the 5 regions. Right now, the businesses of the Emperor Pavilion were no longer limited to auction houses and transaction pavilions. In fact, they had already expanded to inns, as well as taking on missions to forge weapons and inscribe formations. The experts in the Emperor Pavilion had already far surpassed a governor's manor. Such a large business naturally required a lot of manpower to support it. And given how powerful the Emperor Pavilion was, they had sufficient wealth and resources to recruit people. If Di Tian got married and took a wife, children and grandchildren, the Emperor Pavilion would definitely become a supreme aristocrat clan 1,000 years later. Hence, during these years, Di Tian encountered many things that made him speechless. Many major powers would send their young misses to the Emperor Pavilion, it was simply like they were here for a blind date. In fact, even if Di Tian didn't officially marry them, it was fine if he only wanted to take them as his concubines. After encountering such situations many times, Di Tian directly refused to meet them again. This caused many people to be puzzled. Grandmaster Di was already famous and accomplished, why was he so distant from women? One must know that leaving aside Jialan Chuyue, who was a peak-level beauty, even the young miss of the Mo clan, Mo Junyi, was also a rare beauty. Also, the young misses they sent to the Emperor Pavilion, which one of them wasn't talented and beautiful? Would they dare to send ordinary women to the Emperor Pavilion? For other people with Di Tian's level of achievements, it was very normal for them to have many beauties around them. But Grandmaster Di actually didn't accept any of them. Even if he didn't marry or take concubines, the other powers wouldn't have any objections even if he kept them by his side. As long as Di Tian accepted them, they would at least have the status of a concubine, right? Could it be that Grandmaster Di already had someone in his heart? If not, why didn't he even want to marry the young miss of the Zhelan clan? Today, the headquarters of the Emperor Pavilion in the central city regions had already expanded by an unknown number of times and was incomparably resplendent. The courtyard Di Tian was in was exquisitely decorated. Every step he took, there was a scenery. This was personally arranged by Mo Junyi. Right now, this place was no longer a place where just anyone could enter easily. Even peak-stage immortal emperors had to report their arrival. However, at this moment, there was a female in the courtyard. She was incomparably beautiful and exuded a noble aura. This female was none other than Zhelan Chuyue. Chuyue, why are you so free to come here? Di Tian smiled. I encountered some troublesome matters and came here to take a walk. Zhelan Chuyue's gaze was filled with hidden bitterness when she stared at Di Tian. During these tens of years, their relationship was already very close. Is that so? Tell me about it. Di Tian sat in front of Zhelan Chuyue. Do you still remember the Shenyuan clan you met tens of years ago in Lifelong City? Zhelan Chuyue asked. I naturally remember. The Shenyuan clan is so powerful and they even have a world palace lord. How could I forget about them? Di Tian laughed. Someone from the Shenyuan clan came to Lifelong City to propose marriage, wanting a young genius from the Shenyuan clan to form a marriage alliance with my Zhelan clan. Isn't it the son of Shenyuan Hao who came earlier? He's even more outstanding compared to him. Zhelan Chuyue's beautiful eyes stared at Di Tian as she spoke, feeling trepidation in her heart. In truth, there was no such thing. She was just making things up. Oh, he wants to marry you. Di Tian started as he asked. Upon seeing the shock on Di Tian's face, Zhelan Chuyue's heart stirred. She seriously nodded her head as a hint of anticipation could be seen in her eyes. Chuyue, congratulations. This is such a good thing, why are you so troubled? Di Tian suddenly laughed as he spoke in an extremely serious manner. Zhelan Chuyue's beautiful eyes froze as she stared at Di Tian in a daze. Di Tian didn't seem to be joking. Congratulations. Good thing. Her clan had hinted to Di Tian many times but after so many years, Di Tian still didn't express his stance. She finally mustered her courage and listened to her clan's suggestion, putting down her pride in even lying. Just to exchange for a sentence of congratulations. At this moment, Zhelan Chuyue only felt incomparably wronged. Her pride and self-esteem were all trampled on. Di Tian, you bastard. This was the first time Zhelan Chuyue cursed. After that, she turned and ran away, her eyes red, leaving behind a dumbfounded Di Tian. Chapter 1639. In an ordinary-looking courtyard in the lifelong Saint Hall, Yi Qianyu quietly laid there, exuding a sense of laziness. Her alluring figure was extremely alluring. During these tens of years, she and some other maidens of the Red Dust Immortal Palace had been imprisoned in the lifelong Saint Hall, unable to go out. Occasionally, when the lifelong Realm Lord was in the mood, he would summon them for a dance. Although they didn't really have to do any chores, it was better to let them do chores than to treat them like dancers. Sometimes, Yi Qianyu also wanted to resist but she knew what sort of existence the lifelong Realm Lord was. If one dared to resist his orders in the lifelong Saint Hall, a single word from him would be enough to kill you. But she still wanted to see a certain person grow. She wanted to see how many more years the lifelong Realm Lord could admire their dances. Every once in a while, Qin Wentian's voice would ring out in Yi Qianyu's mind. That was the motivation for her to continue living. She knew that there had always been someone worrying about her. Although her messaging crystal had been confiscated and she had no way to reply, Qin Wentian knew that she could hear his voice. Even if she couldn't reply, Qin Wentian would still frequently chat with her. Naturally, Qin Wentian was the one speaking and she was the one listening. At this moment, the sound of footsteps rang out. Yi Qianyu was still lying there lazily. She opened her eyes and stared at the person who came. She saw a face that wasn't in any way inferior to her own. It was as cold as ice and his black hair cascaded down like a waterfall. "You are here." Yi Qianyu lazily spoke. "Sit. Does he know that the lifelong Realm Lord is treating you like this?" Princess Kitamura's cold voice rang out. During these years, she had always been in the lifelong Saint Hall. The lifelong Realm Lord personally gave the order to keep her here. How could the Lifeire Empyrean disobey? From then on, she stayed in the lifelong Saint Hall. Many people said that she, Princess Kitamura, had become the lifelong Realm Lord's trusted aide. There were also rumors that the lifelong Realm Lord was interested in Princess Kitamura. Naturally, such rumors wouldn't reach her ears. No one would dare to do so. Even now, Baiming Yuhuang still didn't know the reason. She knew that Qin Wentian had displayed extraordinary talent during the banquet in the lifelong realm. He single-handedly challenged the Empyrean governors and monarchs of the 8 world palaces and defeated them all. She didn't understand why from then on, the lifelong Realm Lord would summon her here. At the same time, he would frequently make Yi Qianyu dance. This was a form of disrespect to Yi Qianyu. It was impossible for the lifelong Realm Lord to not know about this. In addition, back then, the reason why Qin Wentian went out to battle was because of Yi Qianyu. The lifelong Realm Lord also understood this. But why would he do this? Princess Kitamura wasn't clear about this. She had no way to guess the lifelong Realm Lord's thoughts. It was hard to guess what major characters were thinking. "I don't even have my messaging crystal. How would he know?" Yi Qianyu smiled, her grace didn't diminish at all. "In that case, do you know why the Realm Lord did this?" Princess Kitamura asked again. "Even you don't understand why he made you stay here." "How would I know?" Yi Qianyu stared at Princess Kitamura. Clearly, this wasn't the first time the two of them chatted. "Maybe it's because your dance is too beautiful and the Realm Lord is infatuated with it. However, everyone in the lifelong realm knows that the reason he went out to battle back then was because of you. The Realm Lord wouldn't want to snatch your love away. Hence, he only made you dance for him to watch." Princess Kitamura calmly spoke. If not, she truly couldn't think of any other reasons. "You didn't ask him?" Yi Qianyu smiled. Princess Kitamura started. "It has been a very long time since she contacted Qin Wentian. Could it be that you want to tell him about your encounter here?" Princess Kitamura asked. "You didn't ask him because the moment you did, he would surely find out about my situation and know of my encounter. He would hate the lifelong Realm Lord and might do something impulsive, causing a calamity to befall him. Hence, you would rather not tell him that you are here in the lifelong Saint Hall." Yi Qianyu's beautiful eyes stared at Princess Kitamura as she smiled. "You like him, right?" Princess Kitamura's beautiful eyes froze. After that, she stood up and turned to leave. Upon seeing this scene, Yi Qianyu smiled. "Back then, for the sake of you, he has already acted against you once. Hence, you don't dare to tell him. You are afraid that he would act impulsively again for the sake of me." Baiming Yuhuang didn't halt her steps. She directly left the area and swiftly vanished from sight. Yi Qianyu stared at her back as she mumbled, "You must have ravaged quite a number of females in Lifeire City, right?" Right now, Qin Wentian wasn't in Lifefire City. Right now, he was strolling around Heavenly City. The Thousand Feathers Palace of the past had already become the territory of others and was currently open for business. Upon seeing Qin Wentian entering, the beautiful serving girl couldn't help but smile when she saw his extraordinary demeanor. "Sir, what do you want?" "I can recommend something. I'm just taking a walk around casually." Qin Wentian smiled. His originally handsome face was exceptionally mesmerizing when he smiled. The beautiful serving girl stared at him in a daze as her heart pounded. Right now, Qin Wentian's demeanor was simply too attractive. One could tell that he was an extraordinary character with a single glance. "Okay, I will bring Sir around." The serving girl gently smiled. "No need, I can just walk around by myself." Qin Wentian smiled and walked away. The serving girl had a look of disappointment on her face as she stared at Qin Wentian's back. Qin Wentian came to the inner palace of the Thousand Feathers Palace. However, the appearance of this place had already changed. He walked all the way to a tall platform in the backyard and stared at this majestic city that resembled a dragon's vein. "Who is it?" Someone coldly spoke. After that, several immortal emperors appeared here, coldly staring at Qin Wentian. "Sir, this place is private property, you are not allowed to barge in." "Sorry, I've stayed here before. Hence, I'm just taking a walk around." Qin Wentian smiled. Those people could sense Qin Wentian's extraordinary demeanor, but they couldn't see through his cultivation base. Hence, they couldn't help but feel hesitant in their hearts. Right now, Qin Wentian spoke again, "I'll just take a seat and leave. I won't do anything else. Sorry for the disturbance." After speaking, Qin Wentian sat down as though there was no one else here. He took out a flask of wine and started to drink alone. The image of Yi Qianyu in the past flashed in his mind. Right now, he wondered how Yi Qianyu was doing. Those people left, but they didn't go too far away. They stood outside and stared at Qin Wentian. A light breeze blew by, the wine didn't intoxicate him. Qin Wentian was the same as Yi Qianyu in the past. He laid there lazily and stared at the majestic city, exuding a sense of loneliness. The supreme ancient immortal realms were boundlessly vast, he had met many people here. However, the person who left the deepest impression in his mind was naturally Yi Qianyu. Maybe, there was also Yu Huang. However, she couldn't be considered someone from the supreme ancient immortal realms. "Are you doing well?" At this moment, a voice rang out in his mind. Qin Wentian almost thought that he was hearing things. He couldn't help but to start. After that, he took out his messaging crystal and sent his immortal sense in. He found a strand of immortal sense and asked, "Yu Huang. Amicham, how are you?" The gentle voice rang out again. A smile appeared in Qin Wentian's eyes. "I was just thinking about you, I didn't expect you to send me a message so quickly." "I'm doing well, but what about you? Where did the Lifefire Empyrean arrange for you? I can't see you every time I go to the Lifefire Palace." "I'm in the Lifelong Saint Hall." Princess Kitamura spoke in a light voice. Qin Wentian's eyes narrowed. He placed the wine flask down and slowly sat up. He asked, "Why are you in the Lifelong Saint Hall? When did this happen?" "Back then, after you displayed your brilliance in Lifelong City, the Lifelong Realm Lord transferred me to the Lifelong Saint Hall. From then on, I've been staying there. The Lifefire Empyrean also severed all contact with me. It's like I suddenly became someone of the Lifelong Saint Hall." Princess Kitamura spoke in a light voice. From her tone, one could tell that she didn't know the reason. Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. He thought of the Gemini Palace Lord, he thought of ancient Emperor Yi. There was only one possibility for the Lifelong Realm Lord to know Princess Kitamura. It was because of Qin Wentian. The Lifelong Realm Lord investigated him and felt that Qin Wentian was the disciple of ancient Emperor Yi. And back then, he and Princess Kitamura appeared in Jialan Emperor City as fellow apprentice brother and sister. Because of this, the lifelong Realm Lord transferred Princess Kitamura to the lifelong Saint Hall. Did the lifelong Realm Lord ask you anything? For example, the relationship between us and our sect? Qin Wentian asked. Princess Kitamura fell silent for a moment, as though she was thinking. After that, she replied, sometimes, when we chatted, I don't know if it was a hint or not. But I didn't ask for more details. Qin Wentian fell silent. A moment later, he asked again, have you met Yi Qianyu before? I've been waiting for you to ask. Princess Kitamura immediately replied, not long ago, I met her. I don't know why, but the lifelong Realm Lord doesn't respect her at all. Although he didn't make things difficult for her, he would often make her dance for him. Qin Wentian's expression instantly changed, becoming somewhat unsightly to behold. In the battle back then, he fought for Yi Qianyu. Everyone knew this, including the Realm Lord. However, the Realm Lord did this not only because he didn't respect Yi Qianyu, he also didn't care about him, Qin Wentian. Naturally, the lofty Realm Lord truly didn't need to care about his existence. So what if his talent was outstanding? After all, he was merely an immortal emperor. I only told you this now because I was afraid you would be impulsive. Yi Qianyu said that she believes in you and that you wouldn't be the same as before. Princess Kitamura slowly spoke. Qin Wentian started again. He thought back then when he went to the Jialan Emperor City because of Princess Kitamura, it directly caused Yi Qianyu to be captured. From then on, Princess Kitamura was also confined to the Lifeire Palace. And now, she was sent to the lifelong Saint Hall. I will take note. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath as he transmitted his voiceover. Emichim, I'll be leaving then. Take care of yourself. Princess Kitamura muttered to herself for a moment before her voice rang out. Yu Huang, you too. If anything happens in the lifelong Saint Hall, tell me immediately. Qin Wentian replied. Princess Kitamura didn't reply. Qin Wentian kept his messaging crystal and stared into the distance. Abruptly, a powerful coldness gushed forth from him, instantly enveloping this entire space. Those who were staring at him from the outside only felt fear in their hearts as they felt an incomparably heavy pressure. A beam of light flashed as that silhouette directly vanished from sight. After he vanished, numerous silhouettes flickered over, appearing at the location where Qin Wentian left. They exchanged glances as they spoke in a low voice, that person is so terrifying. Chapter 1640. Bastard, he actually dared to act as a bandit to kill him. He had to pay any price to kill him. At this instant, the subordinates of the Jialan monarch were all stunned. In fact, they even forgot about the battle, they forgot everything. Only to see several figures descending from the sky. All of them were wearing special masks, their faces couldn't be seen clearly. There were actually 3 immortal emperors among them, while the others were all immortal kings. One must know that as one of the 9 monarchs of the Lifeire Palace, his strength was extremely powerful. Even if the Jialan clan used some tricks, if he wasn't strong enough, no matter how much support the Jialan clan gave him, it would be impossible for him to ascend to the throne. How could someone who was too weak be able to guard such a vast territory? Even a random bandit wouldn't be able to deal with him. That mid-stage immortal emperor instantly took out his messaging crystal and sent a message in, Monarch, there are bandits trying to plunder the mine. However, the bandit leader's saber didn't stop. This saber slashed through the void. When it slashed out, the Jialan monarch only felt his soul being lacerated as he groaned in misery. After that, he saw the bandit leader walking over. The bandit leader stretched his hand out and made a grabbing motion in the air. This grab was like the hand of a devil king of darkness. Back then, the grudge between the Jialan monarch and Qin Wentian caused a terrifying storm. Qin Wentian and the evil emperor slaughtered their way into the emperor palace, killing many experts there. The Jelan monarch's power was damaged and he was no longer regarded as highly by his clan. In addition to the pressure from the Li-Fire Empyrean, he had been living a very unhappy life during these years. The expression of the Jelan monarch instantly turned incomparably heavy. The demonic white snake arced through the air, instantly appearing above the bandit leader. It opened its jaws wide, wanting to devour the bandit leader in a single gulp. The Jelan monarch died. Someone who wants your life. At this instant, the eyes of the bandit leader flashed with terrifying lightning sabers, directly shooting into the eyes of the Jelan monarch, aiming for his soul. Boom! The space trembled. The Jelan monarch felt like he was being held in the palm of a devil king. He struggled madly, his eyes were cold to the extreme as he stared fixedly at the bandit leader. He roared in rage, "Who are you?" The Jelan monarch furrowed his brows. Staring at the other party's reaction, he faintly sensed that the other party was clearly waiting for him to come. At this moment, many people felt their hairs stand on end. Had this world gone mad? Even bandits were so crazy. The expression of the guardian below was as pale as paper. But at this moment, a resplendent spatial energy gushed over as a terrifying aura erupted over. A voice rang out, "Who dares to behave atrociously in my territory?" The bandit leader acted as though he didn't see anything. He took a step out, causing the heavens and earth to rumble as a tyrannical might engulfed the area. Beams of saber light flashed through the air, akin to black lightning, directly slashing the demonic beasts into pieces. In the darkness, a white bolt of lightning shot towards the Jelan monarch. Demonic scales appeared on the bandit leader's arms as he punched out, manifesting a gigantic snake that danced in the air. "You are..." the Jelan monarch roared. However, with a thunderous boom, that terrifying palm imprint of darkness directly slammed together, suppressing everything. The Jelan monarch's body trembled violently as fresh blood gushed out. He directly shut his mouth as his face turned ashen. His eyes were filled with despair as he stared at the bandit leader, filled with boundless terror and rage. At this instant, the Jelan monarch wanted to take out his messaging crystal and report the identity of the bandit leader. However, it was already too late. He was filled with deep despair. Boom! Boundless destructive energy gushed forth, the Jelan monarch was about to be completely destroyed. Before he died, he suddenly thought of many things. He thought of the past. He was a genius of the Jelan clan and was heavily nurtured by the clan. The clan arranged for him to seize the position of the Li-Fire Palace's monarch, giving him a lofty position. His authority towered up into the sky and he could control the life and death of many people. In addition, countless terrifying resources flowed through his hands. "If you all leave now, I can just treat this as a misunderstanding." The sky was blue, the sky was clear for 10,000 miles. A light breeze blew by, causing people to feel extremely comfortable. However, the people of the heavenly meteor mine were all extremely tense. The day of opening was always an extremely important day, there was no room for mistakes. Everyone was on high alert. Although the probability of bandits appearing was extremely low, there was still a possibility. Hence, no one dared to be careless. After speaking, he inclined his head and stared at everyone in the air. "Everyone, this is the heavenly meteor mine under the jurisdiction of the Jelan monarch. If anything happens to this mine, the Jelan monarch would definitely not let this matter rest. In addition, there's still the Li-Fire Empyrean above. The price of robbing this mine isn't something you all can afford. If you all leave now, I'll treat this as a misunderstanding." Although the Li-Fire Empyrean and the Jelan monarch weren't on the same side, killing a monarch was definitely a great taboo. However, this bandit leader actually dared to kill one of the 9 monarchs, the Jelan monarch, in front of everyone. However, at this moment, the Jelan monarch was actually so weak in front of this bandit leader. From this, one could very well imagine how powerful this bandit leader was. All of them were filled with terror as they stared at the corpse on the ground, as well as the figure who killed the Jialan monarch. Was this person crazy? He actually dared to kill a monarch? Could it be that he didn't know the consequences of his actions? This world would no longer be able to tolerate him. Even the Jialan monarch couldn't deal with these bandits. How terrifying were these bandits? The immortal emperor standing in the center waved his hand. A moment later, a group of people directly rushed over. A terrifying aura gushed forth, exuding a terrifying pressure. At this moment, the Jialan monarch seemed to have guessed who this person was. He screamed madly in his heart. It's him who wants to kill me. The Jialan monarch was very angry, he was truly angry. Back then, it was precisely because of a group of bandits that he, the Jialan monarch, became a laughing stock. His son was killed and his clan no longer valued him. And now, these bandits actually dared to appear in his territory. Who are you? Don't you know that bandits will be hunted down endlessly? The Jialan monarch coldly spoke. His eyes directly pierced through space, staring into the eyes of the bandit leader. However, the eyes of the bandit leader were extremely terrifying, incomparably deep. There was no reaction at all. Another thunderous boom rang out. The Jialan monarch's entire body was on the verge of exploding. His entire body was dyed red with blood and he was only left with a single breath. His eyes were still filled with malice as he stared at the bandit leader who killed him. He was in high spirits, his life was moving towards glory. If he wanted wind, he would get wind. There was nothing he couldn't obtain. You. He wanted to say something but it was too late. The destructive attack slammed down once more. The Jialan monarch was finally completely killed as his body powerlessly fell from the air. The monarch has arrived. The experts guarding the mine felt extremely excited. They only saw the Jialan monarch personally leading a group of experts over, exuding an intense pressure. The Jialan monarch's body flashed with a bright light as a dragon snake coiled in the air, exuding a demonic aura. His eyes were also extremely demonic as he stared at the bandit leader. As the sound of his voice faded, everyone instantly moved, getting into formation and guarding the mine. All of them inclined their heads and stared at the sky as though they were facing a great enemy. Have you guys gone mad? A mid-stage immortal emperor under the Jialan monarch cursed. A resplendent light radiated from him as he soared up into the air, killing his way towards the bandit leader. This bandit leader was clad in a mysterious robe, exuding an extremely cold aura, tyrannical like a devil. If not, given how powerful this bandit leader was, he basically didn't need to be a bandit. He could just directly go to the Lifire Palace and he would be able to get a good job. Today, the heavenly meteorite mine was opened. Today, experts were as common as the clouds. A mid-stage immortal emperor and 2 initial-stage immortal emperors were personally guarding the mine. However, the bandit leader didn't feel any fear at all. He stared at the Jialan monarch as his eyes gleamed with coldness. He had no thoughts of fleeing at all. The bandit leader didn't reply to him, only a terrifying killing intent radiated from him. The people below all turned pale when they saw the Jialan monarch being controlled by the bandit leader. This bandit leader was like a devil god, unexcelled in the world. Even the Jialan monarch wasn't a match for him. They could faintly sense that doomsday had arrived. The Jialan monarch, one of the 9 monarchs under the Lifire Palace, was actually killed by the bandit leader. In the depths of the heavenly meteorite mine, a group of people continued to hand over their ores. At this moment, the mid-stage immortal emperor suddenly frowned. After that, his eyes abruptly opened as he stared at the sky. An extremely cold gaze pierced through the air as he coldly spoke, "There are bandits." He could faintly sense that this unexcelled bandit leader wasn't here for the mine but for him, the Jialan monarch. He wanted to use the identity of a bandit to plunder the mine before luring the Jialan monarch here to hunt him down. A black bolt of lightning flashed, akin to the saber of a devil king. It cleaved apart the space, directly slicing the white snake apart. The Jelon monarch's expression drastically changed. He took out a divine weapon and slashed it forward. A moment later, tens of thousands of demonic beasts rushed out, rushing towards the bandit leader. Kill! The mid-stage Immortal Emperor instantly rushed over. His towering sword intent slashed towards the bandit leader. However, the bandit leader directly slashed out a beam of saber light. This saber light seemed capable of cleaving apart the heavens and earth, tearing apart the void. In an instant, a bloody wound appeared in the center of the mid-stage Immortal Emperor's brows. After that, the wound continued to seep downwards. In an instant, that mid-stage Immortal Emperor died. However, he didn't expect that his life would change so quickly. Just when he was feeling complacent, everything suddenly changed. He encountered those fellows who caused him to be consigned to eternal damnation. The bandit leader was definitely the bandit leader. However, this didn't affect the Jelon monarch's control over the resources. In this vast region, there were many mines being mined. The three main mines, Quicksand Mine, Heavenly Meteorite Mine and Violet Cloud Mine, had the tightest security. Experts were as common as clouds, with immortal emperors personally guarding them. Go to hell. A cold voice rang out. Chapter 1641. The bandit leader stared at the fallen Jelon monarch. The eyes beneath the mask were incomparably deep. After that, it was as though nothing had happened. He glanced in the other directions and spoke, "Everyone, hand over all the mines. For those who don't, kill them without mercy." Everyone felt their hearts trembling. How would they dare to resist? Even the immortal emperors who came with the Jelon monarch were all dumbfounded. The Jelon monarch was killed. Even a powerful monarch was killed on the spot. How could they resist? What difference was there between resisting and courting death? At this moment, it was clear that their lives were more important. Great waves rose up in their hearts. They still felt that this was a little surreal. This world was too crazy. The last time bandits appeared was when Yi Qianyu and her group appeared. At that time, those bandits were already powerful and tyrannical enough, causing the Jelon monarch to be in a miserable state. At the end, the Li-Fire Palace interfered and managed to suppress them, imprisoning Yi Qianyu and bringing Qin Wentian away as well. However, after 100 years, the bandits appeared again. In addition, they were even more ruthless and tyrannical, even more daring and crazy, directly killing the Jelon monarch. No matter what relationship the Jelon monarch had with the Li-Fire Empyrean, he was one of the 9 monarchs and was a subordinate of the lifelong realm lord. As a bandit, you actually dared to rob a mine belonging to a realm lord and killed a monarch? This was definitely a great taboo. The Li-Fire Palace would definitely hunt you down. If you were merely a bandit, the Li-Fire Palace would only investigate the Jelon monarch. But since the Jelon monarch was killed by you, how could the Li-Fire Palace not investigate to the end? These bandits were prepared to endure the towering anger of the Li-Fire Palace. However, all of these were matters for the future. The subordinates of the Jelon monarch, the guards of the Skyfall mine, all trembled as they handed over the mines. No one dared to resist and all of them were extremely obedient. The bandits directly seized the mines and no longer killed anyone. It was like they were just a bunch of ordinary bandits. If the Jelon monarch didn't die. Let's go. After that, the bandit leader waved his hands. The group of them soared into the air and swiftly vanished from this area. The experts in the Sky Meteorite mine still haven't recovered from their shock. All of them stared dumbfoundedly at the corpse of the Jelon monarch. Someone spoke, "Send this news to the Li-Fire Palace with the fastest speed. If not, all of us will be doomed." As for the group of bandits, they directly left the Sky Meteorite mine and arrived in the airspace above a desolate mountain far away. A group of bandits had unkind gazes as they stared at their leader. "Why did you kill the Jelon monarch? Have you gone mad?" Clearly, they didn't know that they were here to kill the Jelon monarch. What's done is done. You guys have already taken the mine. What's the point of saying so much? Disperse. The bandit leader calmly spoke, as though killing the Jialan monarch wasn't a big deal. We agreed that we would only rob the mine. Because of your strength, we agreed to be bandits and let you block the Jialan monarch and the others. However, you actually killed the Jialan monarch. Are you trying to cause our deaths? Who are you exactly? Another person coldly spoke. The bandit leader's cold eyes directly landed on him as a terrifying killing intent enveloped this space. The pressure was terrifying to the extreme. The gazes of the bandits instantly froze as they felt their bodies turning cold. Only now did they realize that the bandit leader was someone who even dared to kill the Jialan monarch. If he wanted to silence them, wouldn't it be a simple matter? Yet, they actually dared to question the bandit leader. When they thought of this, their expressions all turned pale. You should know that we are also anxious. This is too crazy, we don't understand. Another person spoke. His tone was much gentler than before. Clearly, he was worried that the bandit leader would kill all of them in a fit of anger. Things have already been done, what's the point of thinking so much? The cultivation resources have already been distributed. It's much better compared to you guys being unaffiliated cultivators. Also, this is only a one-time deal. In the future, all of you can go back and do what you want to do. In the future, don't appear as bandits again. Without any clues, who would be able to trace it back to you guys? The bandit leader calmly spoke. All of you can disperse. You guys don't even know each other's identities. Just leave and we won't have anything to do with each other in the future. The eyes of everyone flashed. This bandit leader was right. It's just that this time around, they didn't leave any clues behind. It wouldn't be so easy to trace them back to them. This time around, they chose to become bandits because it was too tough to be unaffiliated cultivators. They lacked cultivation resources, and at this moment, this terrifying bandit leader came looking for them and displayed his strength, wanting to bring them along to do a big job. They agreed, and hence, this matter happened today. Farewell. Numerous figures directly soared into the air and departed. They didn't waste any words and didn't even interact with each other. It would be best if they didn't know each other and didn't know each other. In that case, if someone found out about this, they wouldn't be implicated. Robbing a mine and killing a monarch. If they were caught by the Lifire Palace, only death would await them. Lifire City, Northern City Region, Governor's Manor. Within the Governor's Manor, a white-robed figure walked out. This figure was incomparably handsome and exuded a carefree aura. Many people in the Governor's Manor inclined their heads and stared at this white-robed figure. Their eyes were filled with respect. This was their governor, their exuding magnificence through the generations. Back then, he single-handedly defeated all the governors and monarchs of the 9 world palaces. How glorious was that? Although their governor has been very low profile during these years, no one dared to show any disrespect to him. When they looked at the white-robed figure, it was like they were looking at a divinity. This was their faith, a godlike existence. The white-robed figure turned his gaze over and stared at the crowd below. Everyone could clearly see his incomparably handsome countenance. He was extremely outstanding. I'm going out to temper myself and might need some time. If someone comes to look for me, just tell them that I'm not around. Unless there's an extremely important matter, don't disturb me. The white-robed figure calmly spoke. After that, his silhouette flashed, transforming into a beam of light as he vanished. Everyone stared at the departing figure, feeling a sense of disappointment and frustration. Even for them, there weren't many chances for them to personally see this white-robed figure. Lord Governor, is he going out to temper himself again? No one knew where he would go this time around. The news of the Jialan monarch's death was circulated back to the Emperor Palace in Jialan Emperor City at the fastest speed. After that, the Lifire Palace heard about it. In fact, There were even people who used teleportation arrays to bring the Jialan monarch's corpse to the Lifire Palace to report this. Within the Lifire Palace, many experts gathered together, arriving at the Great Hall of the Lifire Palace. The Lifire Empyrean personally came. When he saw the Jialan monarch's corpse, his expression instantly turned cold to the extreme. Although the Jialan monarch was someone from the Jialan clan and he didn't wish for the Jialan monarch to sit in that position, no matter what, the Jialan monarch was still his subordinate. If he didn't want the Jialan monarch to sit in that position, he should be the one to kick the Jialan monarch away. However, there was actually someone who stole a mine and killed one of the 9 monarchs in the territory of his Lifire Palace. Stealing a mine, killing a monarch. Such a vile act actually happened in the territory of his Lifire Palace. One could very well imagine that the Jialan clan would definitely make use of this matter to make a big fuss and report him to the Realm Lord. How did he, the Lifire Empyrean, govern the territory of the Lifire Palace? Tell me everything clearly. The Lifire Empyrean had a sinister look on his face. After that, the person below began to tremble as he reported everything. You are saying that the Jialan monarch might be acquainted with the bandit who killed him and even guessed who it was? But he didn't even have the chance to say it. The Lifire Empyrean coldly spoke when he heard that person's report. That person bowed. This subordinate thinks so. Back then, the Jialan monarch's tone was as though he had already guessed who the bandit was. However, this subordinate doesn't dare to be certain. After all, the Jialan monarch didn't even say it out loud before he was killed. Although Jialan's strength isn't too strong, he's already in charge of a territory. There wouldn't be too many people who could deal with him. As for those who could directly kill him, that number would be even fewer. In addition, since this bandit only killed the Jialan monarch, it means that there's a grudge between them. If we eliminate this, who else do you all think it could be? The Lifire Empyrean coldly spoke. He wasn't just asking the people from Jialan Emperor City, he was also asking the people from the Lifire Palace. The eyes of the people from the Lifire Palace flashed, they seemed to have thought of a person. However, no one dared to say it. When the people from the Jialan Emperor Palace heard the Lifire Empyrean's words, they also seemed to have thought of a person. Similarly, they didn't dare to say it. If there's anything, just say it. Everyone here is my trusted aide. The Lifire Empyrean coldly spoke. This subordinate is worried that I might say something wrong. The Jialan monarch's subordinate bowed. Speak. The Lifire Empyrean coldly spoke. That subordinate's body trembled as he bowed. There's such a person. He was once a bandit and he definitely has the strength and motive to kill the Jialan monarch. The eyes of everyone flashed. Sharpness gleamed in many people's eyes. The words of this person were exactly the same as what they were thinking. Although this person has always been low profile, would he really do such a thing? Back then, the moment he took over, he killed 3 vice-governors and kept a low profile for many years. When he acted again, he killed over 10 immortal emperors and seized control of the ancient river auction house, shaking the northern regions. After doing all these, he acted as though nothing had happened and kept a low profile to cultivate. When he appeared again, he defied the Lifire Empyrean's orders and went to Lifelong City, causing his name to shake the entire Lifelong realm. The possibility of him being the culprit was too high. Given his personality, it was extremely normal for him to do such a thing. After keeping a low profile for tens of years, the moment he acted, it was as though he wanted to kill the Jialan monarch. At this moment, even the Lifire Empyrean's eyes flashed with an extremely cold light. Was it really him? Did he dare to be so audacious to provoke him? During these years, both of them had a tacit understanding, coexisting peacefully. The Lifire Empyrean didn't find trouble with the Jialan monarch, and the Jialan monarch was also very low profile and humble, quietly serving as his vice-governor, not creating trouble or stirring up trouble. If the Jialan monarch continued acting like this, the Lifire Empyrean wouldn't mind continuing to rope him in. However, If the Jelan monarch bore a grudge for what happened in the past and killed the Jelan monarch, that would be crossing his bottom line. Not only did this mean that the Lifeire Empyrean would be smacking his face, there was another layer of meaning. Today, the Jelan monarch could kill the Jelan monarch. In the future, when he was strong enough, would he be able to do the same to the Lifeire Empyrean? Chapter 1642. The Lifeire Empyrean's expression turned heavy. It was very rare for him to be like this in front of his subordinates. But some people seemed to be challenging his bottom line. If he was really the one who did it, there would only be one ending for him. Upon thinking of this, a trace of killing intent flashed in the Lifeire Empyrean's eyes. Clearly, the Lifeire Empyrean had already determined that it was him. Other than him, he couldn't think of anyone else who would take such a risk to kill a monarch of the Lifeire Palace. If it was just a bandit, it was one thing to plunder the mine. But was there a need to kill a monarch? It would be fine as long as they controlled the situation. This would only infuriate the upper echelons to investigate this matter. To bandits, there was no benefit at all. There were very few people with this kind of strength and motive. He could only think of one person. Moreover, it was someone who had been a bandit before, so he should be very familiar with it. The Lifeire Palace, the northern governor, Qin Wentian. You can't speak nonsense. I believe that the subordinates of my Lifeire Palace know their limits. The Lifeire Empyrean had a heavy expression on his face. It seemed like he thought that the words of the person before him had offended him, causing that person to tremble in fear. An immortal emperor was about to prostrate on the ground. That formless pressure caused him to feel suffocated. This subordinate knows his mistake. That person spoke in a low voice. It's good that you know. The Lifeire Empyrean calmly spoke. Men, immediately send people to the various governors' manors and summon them to the Lifeire Palace as soon as possible for a discussion. The eyes of everyone flashed with sharpness when they heard this. The Lifeire Empyrean was still the best. Although he said not to suspect a certain person, in truth, he actually sent people to inform the various governors to gather here for a discussion. Discussion? What discussion? The Lifeire Empyrean wanted to see if the governors were in their manors or not, right? Yes. Someone immediately received the order and moved out with extreme speed. In fact, they didn't even use messaging crystals to inform the Lifeire Empyrean. They had to personally go to the governor's manor to take a look before they knew if the governors were in their manors or not. This was what the Lifeire Empyrean wanted to know. Not long after, news came from outside the Lifeire Palace. The clan leader of the Jelan clan, Jelan Yintian, brought some people from the Jelan clan to pay a visit. The Lifeire Empyrean naturally wouldn't obstruct them. After all, the Jelan monarch was someone from the Jelan clan. It was only normal for them to want to pay a visit. An instant later, Jelan Yintian led a group of people from the Jelan clan over. His eyes were fixed on the corpse on the ground. Jelan Yintian walked forward and came to the side of the corpse. His fists were clenched so tightly that green veins could be seen popping out. It was as though he aged a lot in an instant. Squatting down, Jelan Yintian gently stroked the Jelan monarch's face. This hegemon of the Jelan clan actually had some redness in his eyes. Regardless of whether the Jelan monarch disappointed him or not, this was still his son. Also, Jelan monarch's talent had always been outstanding. If not, he wouldn't have allowed him to take on such a heavy responsibility. However, this son of his who had displayed outstanding talent since young was now a corpse lying here, cold. The eyes of the people from the Jelan clan all turned red, filled with rage and killing intent. No matter what their relationship was when the Jelan monarch was alive, he was still someone from the Jelan clan and was an extremely important member. Now, he had been killed. Palace Lord, what's going on? Jelan Yintian's voice trembled as he asked. He did his best to control his tone, trying to appear calm. Tell the Jelon clan leader what happened. The Livefire Empyrean glanced at the Immortal Emperor who came to report. After that Immortal Emperor recounted what happened, killing intent flashed in the eyes of the people from the Jelon clan. Someone even spoke, it must be him. Other than Qin Wentian, there's no one else. That's right, only he would have such strength and motive. Not only that, he was also a bandit before. Someone added. After everyone heard this, the first person they thought of was Qin Wentian. Shut your mouth. Jelon Yintian berated, his voice was ice cold. This caused the others to stare at him, feeling puzzled. Their Jelon clan had expressed their goodwill to Qin Wentian many times but Qin Wentian completely ignored them. In fact, he even openly threatened them back then, saying that the Jelon Monarch must die for sure. Now, the Jelon Monarch has really died. Other than Qin Wentian, who else could it be? When they thought of this, the people from the Jelon clan were incomparably enraged. That bastard, they had already been extremely benevolent to Qin Wentian, never making things difficult for him and had always wanted to mend their relationship. Yet, Qin Wentian actually still acted against them. Palace Lord, these people speak without thinking, please don't blame them. Jelon Yintian bowed to the Livefire Empyrean. He naturally suspected Qin Wentian as well but Qin Wentian was a governor of the Livefire Palace. No matter what, before they had sufficient evidence, they wouldn't be able to say that Qin Wentian was the murderer. In addition, back then in the Lifelong Realm, the Realm Lord had personally said that they weren't allowed to investigate Qin Wentian's background as a bandit. Qin Wentian is the northern governor of my Livefire Palace. You guys better pay attention to your words or don't blame this seat for punishing you. As for the Jelon Monarch's death, I will naturally investigate this matter to the end. No matter who the culprit is, I will definitely kill them. The Livefire Empyrean coldly spoke, his tone filled with killing intent. This caused the hearts of the people from the Jelon clan to tremble as they understood Jelon Yintian's meaning. After all, they were originally at odds with the Livefire Empyrean. They couldn't leave any evidence that could be used against them. Slandering a governor wasn't a small matter. Although they felt that this was definitely the case, at the very least, they haven't found out anything yet. I've already sent a message to the governors of Livefire City, telling them to investigate this matter. Jelon clan leader, don't worry. The Livefire Empyrean's tone softened as he calmly spoke. The eyes of the people from the Jelon clan flashed. Did he already send a message to the governors? In that case, they would soon know whether Qin Wentian was in the governor's manor or not. Since this was the case, they would just wait here. Time slowly flowed by. The atmosphere in the majestic Livefire Palace grew heavy. The death of a monarch was definitely not a small matter. Let alone the fact that he was killed by bandits. Very swiftly, this news circulated to Livefire City. For a period of time, the entire city was in a commotion as many people discussed about this. The Jelon Monarch was actually killed by someone. Under the Livefire Palace, there was a Grand Governor, 5 governors, and 9 monarchs. But in truth, the monarchs were the true rulers of a region. They controlled mines and resources and had immense authority. They also controlled many cities and the cultivation resources they could obtain far surpassed what governors could compare to. Even a Grand Governor wouldn't be able to compare to them. However, the Jelon Monarch of the Jelon clan was actually killed by bandits. This matter instantly spread like wildfire. Many people were speculating about the murderer and many people involuntarily thought of the northern governor, Qin Wentian. They couldn't help but to think that Qin Wentian was the most suspicious. In fact, there were even people who sighed in admiration. Qin Wentian was as expected of a supreme genius. Back then, he dared to disobey the Livefire Empyrean's orders and headed to Lifelong City, shocking the world with a single feat. Now, he even pretended to be a bandit and killed the Jelon Monarch. This was simply too crazy. The various governors of Livefire City were all summoned to the Livefire Palace. Beauty Xiao furrowed her brows. She used her messaging crystal to contact Qin Wentian, but Qin Wentian didn't reply. This caused her to silently curse that fellow for being too impulsive. Killing the Jialan monarch at this moment, wasn't that simply courting death? This would definitely infuriate the Li-Fire Empyrean. Once the Li-Fire Empyrean found out who the murderer was, he would definitely kill Qin Wentian before reporting the matter to the higher-ups. Killing a monarch, even if Qin Wentian killed Qin Wentian, the Realm Lord wouldn't say anything either. In Li-Fire City, Grand Governor Zhuge Xiong was the first to arrive. After him was Lin Ba, Sun Qian, who took over Xia Ho's position, Beauty Xiao and Yin Qiu. Only Qin Wentian didn't arrive. Upon seeing this scene, Beauty Xiao's smile stiffened. Qin Wentian really didn't appear. The people of the Jialan clan all had ashen expressions. The Li-Fire Empyrean's expression was also extremely sinister. Was this really Qin Wentian? If this was the case, don't blame him then. Finally, the Immortal Emperor who went to the Northern Governor's manor returned. He even brought someone with him. The Li-Fire Empyrean's expression completely sank when he saw this. That Immortal Emperor walked towards him and bowed, reporting to Palace Lord, Governor Qin isn't in the Governor's manor. Boom! Many people from the Jialan clan flashed with terrifying killing intent. Jialan Yintian's eyes also flashed with sharpness. As expected, it was him. The Li-Fire Empyrean radiated coldness. Just when he wanted to speak, that Immortal Emperor continued, however, according to the people in the Governor's manor, Governor Qin left not long ago, saying that he has something important to do outside. If there's nothing important, don't disturb him. I intentionally brought an attendant here with me. Emichem. The eyes of everyone flashed when they heard this. The people of the Jialan clan frowned. The Li-Fire Empyrean stared at that attendant and asked, when did Governor Qin leave? Reporting to Palace Lord, about 4 hours ago. That attendant trembled as he replied. The number of people before him was so vast, and there was even the corpse of the Jialan monarch lying on the ground. He seemed to have realized something. Did he intentionally tell you before he left? The Li-Fire Empyrean asked again. Not only for me, there are many people in the Governor's manor as well. At that time, Lord Governor directly walked out from the inner manor and left a message for us saying that he wanted to leave. Everyone saw it. That attendant didn't dare to hesitate and honestly replied. The Li-Fire Empyrean turned his gaze to the attendant who headed to the Northern Governor's manor. That attendant then replied, Palace Lord, this is indeed the case. The people in the Governor's manor all said this. They all saw Governor Qin leaving. The Li-Fire Empyrean's expression changed. Could it be that he was mistaken? He believed that the people of the Governor's manor wouldn't be so bold as to lie to him together. If this was the case, they would be able to find out with a simple investigation. The people of the Governor's manor wouldn't be so foolish. It was actually not Qin Wentian. When he thought of this, the Li-Fire Empyrean's expression softened a little. If it wasn't Qin Wentian, things would still be fine. At the very least, Qin Wentian didn't challenge his bottom line. Palace Lord, although it's best not to disturb Governor Qin if there's nothing important, I believe that if Palace Lord summons him, Governor Qin will definitely return to meet with you. That attendant bowed. The Li-Fire Empyrean fell silent for a moment before he replied, there's no need. Since Governor Qin has something important to do, let him handle his own matters first. Chapter 1643. 4 hours ago, Qin Wentian was still in the Governor's manor and left after that. In that case, the person who killed the Jialan monarch couldn't be Qin Wentian. If he didn't use the teleportation array in the Jialan Emperor Palace as well as the Li-Fire Palace's teleportation array, it was impossible for Qin Wentian to return in such a short period of time. Also, even if he managed to enter the teleportation array in the Jialan Emperor Palace, what about the Li-Fire Palace's teleportation array? Since so many people saw it at the same time, there was no way this could be faked. They could already eliminate the suspicion of Qin Wentian. The Li-Fire Empyrean's heart also relaxed a little. Maybe, it wasn't a vendetta. Someone was simply too arrogant and wanted to challenge the Li-Fire Palace's prestige, hence killing the Jialan monarch. The people of the Jialan clan were also puzzled. Could it be that the culprit really wasn't Qin Wentian? Their first thought was, could it be that the Li-Fire Empyrean was protecting Qin Wentian? But this thought was soon overturned. If it really was Qin Wentian, given the current relationship between the Li-Fire Empyrean and Qin Wentian, the Li-Fire Empyrean wouldn't hesitate to kill Qin Wentian. Killing the Jialan monarch not only concerned the Jialan clan, it was also challenging the Li-Fire Empyrean's bottom line. It's fine if Qin Wentian isn't here yet. What do the few of you think about this matter? The Li-Fire Empyrean glanced at the other governors. Naturally, his question was merely an act. He ordered his subordinates to gather the governors because he wanted to see if Qin Wentian was in the governor's manor or not. Palace Lord, no matter who it is, it's already extremely brazen to dare to kill the monarch of our Li-Fire Palace. We have to investigate this thoroughly, and after we capture those bandits, we have to execute them in public to shock the world. If not, if other bandits imitate us in the future, where would the prestige of our Li-Fire Palace be? The new governor, Sun Qian, spoke. Naturally, there was nothing more to say now. Zhuge Xiong, what do you think? The Li-Fire Empyrean glanced at Zhuge Xiong. Did the bandits leave any clues behind? Zhuge Xiong's eyes gleamed as he looked at the person who came to report. There aren't any clues left behind. We only know the attributes they are good at. Just based on this, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. That person replied. In the supreme ancient immortal realms, there were simply too many experts. It was unknown how many people were proficient in the same law attribute. Unless one coincidentally encountered the other party and saw the combat style of the other party, only then would they be able to recognize the other party. However, such an opportunity was basically impossible. Palace Lord, they committed such a huge crime, robbing so many mines. There's a high possibility that this is the only time they would appear. If they don't appear again in the future, it would be like searching for a needle in a haystack if we want to find them. We have no clues at all. If we want to break through, we can only act from within the group of bandits. Zhuge Xiong reported to the Li-Fire Empyrean. What should we do exactly? The Li-Fire Empyrean glanced at Zhuge Xiong. Split up. The one who killed the monarch is only the bandit leader. There's no need for us to kill all of them. We can spread the news that as long as it's not the bandit leader, as long as one of them comes forward to surrender, we will give them great rewards and we won't pursue this matter. In this case, it's enough if one of them comes forward to surrender. We can then use this chance to dig out the others. Zhuge Xiong spoke. The Li-Fire Empyrean frowned. Could it be that we won't pursue this matter if they come forward to surrender? And even give them great rewards? Palace Lord, it's just that our Li-Fire Palace won't pursue this matter. Zhuge Xiong had a deep look in his eyes. He even intentionally glanced at the people from the Jialan clan, causing the eyes of everyone to flash. As expected of Zhuge Xiong, he was truly ruthless enough. The Li-Fire Palace wouldn't pursue this matter, but if he wanted someone to die, it was simply too easy. But would they be so foolish as to take the risk? Someone from the Jialan clan asked. Hence, we have to give them great rewards. Also, we have to release news that will make them believe us and move their hearts. Zhuge Xiong spoke. Fine, we will hand this matter over to the Grand Governor. The other governors will cooperate and investigate this matter. As for those who are present today, none of you are allowed to leak out any information. The Li-Fire Empyrean coldly swept his gaze over everyone, causing their hearts to tremble as they nodded. Not long after, everyone dispersed. However, the Li-Fire Palace was still enveloped in a heavy atmosphere. The Jelan clan was the same as well. After they brought the Jelan monarch's corpse back, the entire Jelan clan was filled with a heavy atmosphere. Zhuge Xiong received orders to investigate this matter. He personally headed to Jelan Emperor City and spread the news that the bandit leader of the heavenly meteor mine was extremely brazen, even killing a monarch was an unpardonable crime. Before the bandit leader was captured, as long as there were other bandits who came to surrender themselves, not only would they not be punished for their crimes, they would even be rewarded with 3 high-grade emperor-ranked weapons and 3,000 high-grade emperor stones. They would also be given a courtyard in Lifire City protected by the Lifire Palace. This news caused a huge commotion. This was the first time they heard of bandits receiving such preferential treatment. This was simply strange. The first thing the crowd thought of was that this was a conspiracy. But even if it was a conspiracy, the Lifire Palace could still give such an order. From this, one could see how angry the Lifire Empyrean was. They didn't even care about face and wanted to capture the bandit leader no matter what. After all, a monarch was killed. There were also a small number of people who guessed that this might be true. The Lifire Empyrean personally gave the order, there shouldn't be any falsehood. Maybe, the Lifire Empyrean really wanted to find the bandit leader and execute him in public. However, they didn't have any clues and had no choice but to use this method. Qin Wentian was the target of suspicion. However, he clearly knew that the Lifire Palace naturally wouldn't be able to find out anything. In fact, it was very possible that they would never be able to find out anything. Even if those bandits really surrendered themselves because of their foolishness or greed, so what of it? Those bandits simply didn't know who their leader was. Although they had seen the face of the bandit leader, it was a deliberate disguise. It was a disguise that the bandit leader had used to disguise his appearance. In fact, even his aura was fake. How could they possibly find out who he was? As for who the killer of the Jelan monarch was, their suspicions weren't wrong. The killer was none other than Qin Wentian. When he was in Heavenly City, he received news from Princess Kitamura and learned of Yi Qianyu's encounter in the lifelong Saint Hall. After that, he also saw that Princess Kitamura was also imprisoned there. The flames of hatred from back then instantly ignited in his heart. If it wasn't for the Jelan monarch, everything wouldn't have happened. Yu Huang wouldn't have been trapped so deeply, from the Jelan Emperor City to the Lifire Palace, and then to the lifelong Saint Hall. Yi Qianyu wouldn't have been imprisoned in the Lifire jail for tens of years and even placed under house arrest in the lifelong Saint Hall, suffering humiliation and being used as a dancer. Based on the relationship between him and Yi Qianyu had only danced for him once, and that was on the cold lake in Jelan Emperor City. No matter what the Jelan clan did, the Jelan monarch was destined to die no matter what. Under a fit of rage, Qin Wentian gathered some people and directly acted, killing the Jelan monarch in the Skyfall mine, settling this grudge. As for the figure that appeared in the governor's manor, it was naturally to prove that he didn't kill the Jelan monarch. At that time, he was still in the governor's manor. That figure naturally couldn't be Qin Wentian's true self. It was Di Tian. It was extremely easy for Di Tian to appear in the governor's manor. As long as he changed into a set of white robes and sealed his aura, there would be no difference between him and Qin Wentian after he took off his mask. His reason for leaving was naturally very simple. It was impossible for him to go to the Lifire Palace to confront the Jelan monarch. He could easily hide from his subordinates in the governor's manor. In fact, those people wouldn't even dare to use their immortal senses to probe his aura. But if he went to the Lifire Palace, there would be a risk of him being exposed. Hence, he directly said that he had something to do and that if there was nothing major, don't look for him. He believed that as long as the Lifire Empyrean knew that he had just left the governor's manor and that there were many witnesses, as well as the words he left behind, the Lifire Empyrean wouldn't look for him. Right now, the Lifire Empyrean was still very polite to him. Since the Jelan monarch's death had nothing to do with him, was there any meaning in forcefully summoning him to the Li-Fire Palace? This move could be said to be crossing the sea with the heavens. As long as no one knew that Qin Wentian was Di Tian, no one would ever know that he was the one who killed the Jialan monarch. As long as he didn't kill the Jialan monarch, the Li-Fire Empyrean would continue to be polite to him, maintaining their previous relationship. Hence, Qin Wentian basically didn't need to care about how the Jialan monarch's death would affect him. Over at Li-Fire City, Di Tian was still keeping an eye on things. Right now, the Emperor Pavilion was a hegemonic power in Li-Fire City that was second only to the Jialan clan. In fact, because they weren't restricted by the Li-Fire Palace, they even had signs of surpassing the Jialan clan. In the blink of an eye, several months had already passed since the Jialan monarch's death. In the lifelong realm, other than the 9 world palaces, the lifelong Saint Hall also controlled a vast region. This region had lifelong city as the center, and was the core of the entire lifelong realm. This region was under the direct control of the lifelong Saint Hall. In this region, there were 8 most famous mines in the lifelong realm. The Taotai mine was one of the 8 mines controlled by the lifelong Saint Hall. It was a true supreme-grade mine and there would often be terrifying treasures appearing there. The lifelong Saint Hall would directly guard it. In fact, the 8 mines were connected to the lifelong Saint Hall through spatial teleportation arrays. For countless years, no one dared to come here to steal from them. If such a situation really happened, it would mean that someone wanted to challenge the lifelong Realm Lord's position. Also, the miners of these 8 mines were all at least at the Empyrean realm. Also, they weren't slaves or criminals. They were true experts who came here willingly. Because, although these mines were dangerous, they contained boundless good fortune. As long as there was a small harvest, it would be sufficient for an immortal emperor to squander it for many years. Even if they could only obtain 10% of the harvest, this mine would still attract some extremely powerful characters. Over here, there were opportunities to pry into the realm above the immortal emperor realm. At this moment, Qin Wentian appeared outside the Taotai mine. He stared at the majestic mountain range before him as he walked forward step by step. It was rumored that the Taotai mine was one of the 8 great mines of the lifelong Saint Hall. All sorts of rare treasures could be found there. In fact, there were even many types of treasures that could surpass emperor-level stones. Hence, he came here. For the sake of cultivating faster and coming into contact with the Empyrean realm, he had to take risks. Chapter 1644. Indeed, you are ignorant and inexperienced. Yi Lian laughed, calmly glancing at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian smiled and nodded in response, he didn't mind it at all. Not long after, they arrived at that place. There was an incomparably resplendent golden mountain range that was incomparably majestic. In the distance, many experts could be seen. They were either standing with their eyes closed or sitting cross-legged, all of them seemed to be in a state of comprehension. I didn't expect to be able to meet Brother Shan here. I still remember during the banquet 2 years ago, Brother Shan represented the Sky Air Palace and obtained the number 1 position in the commander battle. After that, you resigned from your position and disappeared without a trace. It's truly my fortune to be able to meet you here. That arrogant leader of the 4 palaces politely clasped his hands and spoke. Clearly, he knew of Shan Lingxiu's name. The group of them respectively walked towards the mine, with Shan Lingxiu in the center. Murong Xiaoxiao unknowingly walked to his side. Is there no one guarding the airspace above this mine? Qin Wentian asked. Taotai mine. Murong Xiaoxiao mumbled. After that, a smile appeared on her face as she spoke to Shan Lingxiu, Brother Shan, my strength is weaker. This mine is filled with danger. If I follow you, you have to protect me. Yi Qin and Yi Lian glanced at Qin Wentian. Yi Lian's eyes flashed with disdain. Although he was a peak-stage immortal emperor, an unaffiliated cultivator was still an unaffiliated cultivator. he actually didn't even know this. She then glanced at Shan Lingqiu, feeling that the disparity between them was too great. It's just that this woman Murong Xiaoxiao was truly shameless enough, she actually chose to follow him. The lifelong realm was simply too vast, so vast that it was boundlessly vast. Just lifelong city alone already had many empyrean powers. Let alone the boundless lifelong realm, there were many other major powers hidden within. Although world overlords who stood at the peak were extremely rare, there would definitely be many powers on the same level as palace lords. In the middle of the vast mine, there was a huge piece of flat land. This place was the entrance to the mine. At this moment, more and more people came here. Qin Wentian was among them. There were many experts around him, all of them were immortal emperors. They were either alone or in groups of 2 or 3. Occasionally, sounds of discussion could be heard. Seeing that everyone was tempted, the young man smiled and said, "This is the Taotai mine, one of the 8 great mines. Having one more friend will increase our chances of success. The 4 of you should be disciples of major powers, right?" The people who just arrived all shook their heads. After that, the guard pointed to the front and said, "If you continue forward, you will reach the entrance of the Taotai mine. I'm sure everyone here understands the rules of the Taotai mine. You can enter and exit at any time, please do as you please." What was even more relaxed was that the Taotai mine did not have to hand over all of its ores on a fixed schedule. Instead, they could come out at any time and hand over all of the ores that they had dug out. Afterward, they would be able to obtain 10% of the ores. That's right. With Brother Shan's talent and identity, why did you come to the Taotai mine? Yi Qin asked. Everyone, please wait a moment. At this moment, a silhouette appeared, causing everyone to stop in their tracks. They turned their heads to look at the person who spoke. It was a young and handsome man. His temperament was extraordinary, and there was a beautiful celestial maiden beside him who bore a striking resemblance to him. Shan Lingqiu calmly nodded. A moment later, the eyes of everyone in the surroundings gleamed with a strange light. Although they were also characters from major powers, their statuses couldn't be compared to Shan Lingqiu, the eldest disciple of the Sky Air Empyrean. Let's go and take a look. Shan Lingqiu's silhouette flashed as he shot out like a bolt of black lightning, speeding towards that direction. The 4 people he spoke to were none other than the group of people Qin Wentian heard earlier. Right. The crowd nodded and continued on their way. Although their cultivation bases were very high, it was unknown how dangerous it was inside. But one thing was for sure, there would definitely be many experts here. The 8 most important mines of the lifelong realm were far more relaxed compared to the other small mines. In addition to the fortuitous encounters hidden within, it attracted experts from all directions to come here unceasingly. This in itself was a kind of strategy. Otherwise, even if there were a lot of fortuitous encounters, if the restrictions were too tight, it would still be very difficult to attract experts to come here to take risks. So much so that some of them came here only for the sake of tempering themselves. Some of them just wanted to broaden their horizons. Are you guys really disciples of the Green Cloud Mountain? The peak stage Immortal Emperor in the lead asked. But who was the Sky Air Empyrean? The lifelong realm lord. Wait for me. Murong Xiaoxiao spoke. The group of them increased their speed. Yi Lian's beautiful eyes involuntarily glanced at Murong Xiaoxiao, as though she found her to be an eyesore. Brother Shan, for the sake of pursuing that cultivation realm, you can even give up your status as a monarch. How admirable. Murong Xiaoxiao's voice was gentle as she smiled. The group of them continued forward and finally entered the teleportation array. In an instant, they traversed a boundless distance and arrived above a mine. This mine was like an incomparably gigantic constellation, boundless and boundless. They stood in the air and felt incomparably tiny, only able to see a small portion of this mine. I didn't expect that I would be able to get acquainted with a disciple of the clan of the Green Cloud Mountain and a genius from the 4 palaces of the desolate ground here. My name is Murong Xiao. A solitary fairy smiled. She was radiant and gentle, her smile was like a crescent moon, exuding a pure beauty. However, given her cultivation base and the fact that she was an unaffiliated cultivator, how could one only look at the surface? Yi Qing, a disciple of the Green Cloud Mountain. This is my younger sister, Yi Lian. The young man smiled and nodded. Brother Tianwen, you might not know this, but the Taotai mine contains a terrifying Taotai energy that can devour the heavens and earth. In the airspace above the Taotai mine, a fearsome spatial tempest was formed, filled with all sorts of destructive auras. Let alone immortal emperors, even transcendents wouldn't be able to leave this place. They can only leave through the exit. Yi Qing smiled as he introduced. Fairy Murong. Yi Qing smiled and nodded to Murong Xiao. The people from the desolate ground palace also nodded to her. Sky Air Empyrean Palace, Shan Lingqiu. The last person was clad in black. His tone was filled with coldness. Even though this was a disciple of the Yi clan from the Green Cloud Mountain and the geniuses from the desolate ground palace, there was no way for him to be polite to them. The desolate ground palace? Yi Qing's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he asked. The other party nodded. As expected of one of the 8 great minds of the lifelong realm. Most of the people who came here should be experts from the hegemonic powers. Qin Wentian silently mused. These hegemonic powers were similar to the Sword Spirit sect in Jialan clan, having palace lords. Qin Wentian followed behind. His countenance was incomparably calm, his heart like still water. He didn't expect that he would be able to casually encounter the Sky Air Palace Lord in the Taotai Mine, a grand disciple of the lifelong realm. This place was truly a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Disciples of the Yi clan. The eyes of the peak stage Immortal Emperor in the lead flashed. After that, he nodded lightly, since this is the case, let's form an alliance then. We are from the desolate ground palace. Everyone, if you want to enter the mine, you have to allow us to inspect all your interspatial rings with our immortal sense. If there are any inconvenient items, you all can leave them behind after you return. At the registration area of the Taotai mine, a guard reminded. Everyone naturally understood this point. Every mine had such a rule. If they didn't check the interspatial rings on you, how would they know if you are hiding something? Hence, if you have any treasures or secret items, you wouldn't bring them with you. A powerful female immortal emperor, right now, was like a little girl, extremely gentle. Shan Lingqiu glanced at her and nodded, you can leave now. Shan Lingqiu, are you the eldest disciple of the Sky Air Palace Lord? Grand disciple of the Realm Lord? Yi Qing's eyes flashed with sharpness as he stared at Shan Lingqiu. This is spatial energy, but it doesn't seem to be pure spatial energy. Qin Wentian stared ahead at the majestic golden mountain that resembled a translucent ancient peak. Within it, there were some scattered silhouettes. All of them had deathly expressions on their faces and were as thin as firewood. It was as though they had been trapped inside for countless years. Senior brother, given your talent and cultivation base, you might really have a chance to break through to the Immortal Emperor realm, transcending mortality and entering sainthood. At this moment, a voice drifted over from the side. It was actually a group of Immortal Emperor-level martial brothers. The weakest among them was at the mid-stage of the Immortal Emperor realm, while the strongest among them exuded a terrifying aura. Clearly, they were already standing at the peak of the Immortal Emperor realm and were here to search for good fortune to break through. Us siblings are disciples of the Green Cloud Mountain. I'm sure everyone knows the dangers of entering the Taotai mine. Not only is there a threat from the Taotai mine itself, there's also the threat from the various experts inside. Even if we manage to find the mine, we might not be able to snatch it away from them. Hence, every batch of people who entered the mine would form an alliance. There are 9 of us, why don't we form an alliance? The young man slowly spoke. What he said was the truth. Many batches of people who entered the mine would form an alliance. What a powerful spatial law energy. Qin Wentian mused in a low voice. What's that? At this moment, Murong Xiaoxiao turned her gaze towards the distance. Over there seemed to be a golden ancient mountain towering over there. Incomparably resplendent light cascaded down from the sky, cascading down on them, giving the ancient mountain a layer of holy light. The group of people continued on their way. Occasionally, Emperor Light would appear below, but they would only casually glance at it before continuing on their way. Ordinary Emperor stones couldn't even enter their eyes. The Taotai mine could be entered at any time. As long as one's cultivation base met the requirements of the Immortal Emperor realm, they would be able to enter and mine. It's me who is ignorant and inexperienced. Thank you for your guidance. Qin Wentian thanked Yi Qing. Before that cultivation base, what's the point of having the identity of a monarch or governor? Shan Lingxiu spoke in a low voice. Let's go. Unaffiliated cultivator, Tianwen. Qin Wentian smiled and nodded, not revealing his true identity. Everyone calmly glanced at Qin Wentian. Their attitude towards Qin Wentian was no longer as friendly as Murong Xiaoxiao. Beauties would always have an advantage. Chapter 1645. This isn't spatial energy. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, Shan Lingxiu calmly replied. He stared at the majestic golden mountain ahead. This is world energy. The eyes of everyone gleamed with sharpness. That's right, this was the energy that many of them wanted to find and come into contact with. World energy. Qin Wentian's gaze sharpened as he stared ahead. Was this world energy that truly existed? In addition, it had materialized here. The transcending Emperor Stone Mine was right before their eyes. This could even be considered world stones. At the Emperor realm, one would be able to comprehend the law domain to the extreme, fusing different laws together to create a powerful law domain. However, what should they do next? When one's comprehension of law energy reached the extreme, they would be able to comprehend the origin of law energy. At that time, cultivators would be able to fuse their will into their law domain. Their law intent would be their will, their heavenly will would be their will. From there, they would be able to fuse their law energy together, creating a brand new energy. This energy was known as world energy. This kind of energy had already surpassed the boundaries of law domains. It was a qualitative transformation, a true qualitative change. When a brand new energy fuses together, your law intent would also fuse into it. That energy would become a part of you. Stellar martial cultivators themselves represented the will of heaven and earth. Hence, they were truly extraordinary existences. They weren't merely immortals who used their own laws, they were existences that transcended immortality, achieving freedom. Hence, there were countless immortal emperors in the lifelong realm. However, how many world overlords were there? Currently, Qin Wentian only knew of two. One was the lifelong realm lord, and the other was Yi from back then. This step must be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Countless extraordinary characters might spend their entire lives, but even when they died, they still couldn't reach that level. Let alone world overlords, they couldn't even reach the realm between immortal emperors and world overlords. There were extremely few people at that level. In the boundlessly vast lifelong realm, those who could step into that realm would all be able to become palace lords or establish a peak power. From this, one could very well imagine how powerful they were. After Qin Wentian entered the supreme ancient immortal realms, it was naturally impossible for him to not understand this information. He had once read ancient records, and there were records of the 33 immortal realms they lived in. Why was the supreme ancient immortal realms formed? Why was there a world? Why was this world so balanced? There were all sorts of laws that naturally fused together. World overlords already had the qualifications to come into contact with that level. Murong Xiaoxiao's beautiful eyes flashed with a bright light. She smiled, "Brother Shan, you are truly too awesome. After hearing your words, I feel that I'm about to gain enlightenment." Incisive. The Yi siblings nodded as well. Qin Wentian had a look of contemplation on his face. Although Murong Xiaoxiao's words were filled with flattery, Shan Lingqiu's words truly caused one to feel enlightened. Humans often said that heaven's will is hard to fathom, heaven's will is hard to defy. Using Shan Lingqiu's words to explain it, it was very logical. Heaven's will was a type of law intent born from heaven and earth. It didn't have the ability to think and was originally illusory, it was naturally hard to fathom. As for humans, they were the spirits of all living things. When humans comprehended that type of energy, their self-consciousness would fuse into that energy, forming the law intent. You would then represent the will of heaven and earth. Heaven's will is my will. How tyrannical is that? These are all superficial things. The world stone before us should be formed from the fusion of the law intent of space and the law intent of earth, giving birth to a brand new type of law intent, transforming from law energy to world energy. Those people are trapped inside and most probably, they would never be able to come out again. Shan Lingqiu stared at the group of figures on the mountain peak as he spoke. The eyes of these people all turned lifeless, they must have experienced a painful struggle. This place isn't suitable for us. Only experts at the World Overlord realm would be able to comprehend this type of energy. We are still some distance away from them. Shan Lingqiu continued. Emichim, I will listen to you. Murong Xiaoxiao nodded. Although the group of them felt that this world mountain was mystical, they also understood that it wasn't suitable for them to comprehend and cultivate here. The distance between them and this place was too far. The group of them continued forward and found another extraordinary place. This was a sword river that flowed down from the sky. It was like a waterfall that flowed downwards unceasingly, flowing into the earth. However, there was a region where the sword river flowed past that transformed into a bottomless abyss. It was unknown if this abyss had reached the core of the Taotai mine or not. This sword river was too terrifying. If one stood below it, only death would await them. The sword intent is still there, it hasn't fused together yet. This sword intent is very close to the origin source of law energy. Shan Lingqiu sat cross-legged and directly closed his eyes to comprehend. Murong Xiaoxiao started when she saw this scene. After that, she smiled sweetly and sat down beside Shan Lingqiu. Qin Wentian also found a good spot. He didn't sit down and merely stood there, quietly watching. His white robes fluttered in the wind as his long hair fluttered in the wind. The law energy of the sword also had a myriad of forms. It could actually transform into flowing water that flowed according to the flow of the sword energy. There were many people here, all of them were here to comprehend, standing in different locations. For those who came to the Taotai mine, other than for the ores, they also wanted to comprehend and cultivate. There were simply too many opportunities here. Several months later, the group of them were still in the midst of comprehending. Qin Wentian stood alone in a corner, while Murong Xiaoxiao would occasionally ask Shan Lingqiu for guidance. Brother Shan, did you comprehend something again? At this moment, Murong Xiaoxiao asked when she saw Shan Lingqiu opening his eyes. Shan Lingqiu nodded lightly. Murong Xiaoxiao then asked, Brother Shan, I wish to consult you. This sword river is like flowing water, gentle but not hard. However, the sword intent is extremely tough and powerful. Can swords really become gentle and have no killing intent? Naturally, it can't. If a sword intent loses its sharpness, can it still be called a sword intent? Shan Lingqiu spoke. Swordsmen should be extremely sharp. Although the sword river before us is gentle, it's actually extremely tough and yang. If one enters it, they would instantly die. The so-called gentleness is merely a facade. Not far away, Qin Wentian's expression changed when he heard Shan Lingqiu's words. In truth, he had been thinking about this question during these few days. However, he had a different understanding from Shan Lingqiu and he could use this opportunity to discuss it. Hence, he spoke, I have a different opinion. The law intent can take on a myriad of forms. For sword attribute swords, there's an extremely tough and yang intent. This is something bestowed by the law attribute itself. However, sword intent can also be gentle, like flowing water brushing past one's body. Murong Xiaoxiao inclined her head and smiled at Qin Wentian. She didn't expect him to speak at this moment. Shan Lingqiu frowned when he was refuted by Qin Wentian. He calmly spoke, have you seen a sword that can't kill? I have. Qin Wentian nodded. When we control the sword intent in our body, why wouldn't it injure us? Fallacy. Shan Lingqiu's voice turned cold. How can the energy we control hurt ourselves? What kind of example is this? It's simply nonsense. The so-called law intent is to infuse one's own will into one's energy. This is what you said earlier. Since this is the case, when we enter a higher realm, heaven's will would become our will. We would be able to control it with ease and not injure ourselves. Similarly, we wouldn't be able to harm others. Right now, we are unable to do so because our cultivation bases aren't high enough. Qin Wentian's tone was as calm as ever. This was his opinion. Although it was the same as comprehending, different people would naturally have different insights. Have you seen people with a higher cultivation base doing this before? Shan Lingqiu mocked, his eyes were filled with mockery. Brother Shan is the eldest disciple of the Sky Air Palace Lord, a grand disciple of the Realm Lord. You have heard the Realm Lord's Tao lectures before. Murong Xiaoxiao giggled. There's a difference in comprehending the Tao. I'm merely stating my opinion. Also, I stand by my opinion. Qin Wentian laughed. In that case, you feel that although you comprehended the Tao later, you have comprehended the Tao before me? Shan Lingqiu's voice was sharp as a terrifying sword intent gushed forth. Since this is the case, why don't you spar with me and we will know? Brother Shan, this is merely a Tao discussion. Brother Tianwen is merely stating his opinion. There's no need to harm the harmony between us. Yi Qin persuaded, faintly feeling that Qin Wentian's words were logical. However, he naturally wouldn't say this out loud. Chapter 1646. Qin Wentian glanced at Shan Lingqiu. He smiled. When they formed the alliance, he already understood that the so-called alliance was merely a way for the weak to protect themselves by relying on the strong. Such an alliance was extremely fragile before benefits. When they formed the alliance, because of Shan Lingqiu's identity, everyone in the alliance was fawning over him. This Shan Lingqiu himself was also an extraordinary character and in addition to his identity, he was naturally extremely proud. Hence, when Shan Lingqiu raised a different opinion, he treated it as a provocation and suggested a spar. Qin Wentian calmly shook his head. He stared ahead and didn't say anything more. His pride wasn't like Shan Lingqiu's, he couldn't tolerate the different opinions of others. He had his own comprehensions and if Shan Lingqiu also insisted on his point of view, what did that have to do with him? Could it be that if someone had a different opinion, he would have to spar with them to prove that he was right? Naturally, the reason why Shan Lingqiu would act this way was because he viewed himself too highly. If he knew that Tianwen was none other than Qin Wentian, he might be able to tolerate Tianwen's different opinions. Now that he was angered, it was only because he felt that Qin Wentian didn't have the qualifications to question his comprehensions in public. This was especially so in front of a beauty. Even if Shan Lingqiu didn't display too much passion for Murong Xiaoxiao, being admired by a beauty would still be able to satisfy his vanity. He naturally wouldn't want to lose face. Brother Shan, how can he spar with you? Why do you care about his opinion? Yi Lian spoke at this moment. As for the other four from the 4 desolate palaces, they fell silent and watched quietly. At the same time, they were pondering over the words spoken by Qin Wentian and Shan Lingxiu earlier. From the surface, it seemed that Shan Lingxiu was right. However, if one pondered deeply, Qin Wentian's words weren't wrong. Since humans could control their own energy without harming themselves, did this mean that energy itself was controllable? There was no absolute. Could the true origin source of law exist in many different forms? The more one thought about it, the more they would feel a trace of comprehension. It was just that they had no way to grasp it. Even so, they still wouldn't express their support for Qin Wentian. The sword river continued flowing. In the depths of the abyss ahead, sword intent could be faintly felt, flowing against the current. This caused the gazes of everyone to stiffen as their immortal senses probed the depths of the abyss. In an instant, the eyes of many narrowed as someone exclaimed in shock, "There's someone there." Someone actually appeared in the abyss. Numerous sharp gazes turned downwards, only to see a silhouette slowly ascending. The sword river flowed against the current, converging with the sword river that was flowing downwards. After that, the sword river shot out in all directions. Puchi. A crisp sound rang out. One of them lowered his head and stared at his chest. There, numerous holes could be seen. It was as though a stream of water had flowed through his body, leaving behind these holes. After which, fresh blood flowed out of the holes, resembling flowing water. Ah! That person let out a miserable howl as he retreated explosively. In an instant, numerous silhouettes hurriedly retreated with fear on their faces. The sword chi river that was like water splashing in all directions seemed gentle and formless, yet it contained a terrifying destructive power. This seemed to prove Shan Lingxiu's words earlier. Maybe the form of a sword could be changed, but the innate essence of a sword was incomparably sharp. There was no sword that wouldn't kill. However, when they stared at the silhouette that appeared in the abyss again, this conclusion seemed to be overturned. Qin Wentian's words seemed to be correct. That person was immersed in the sword river and didn't use any energy to resist it. The sword river flowed through his body slowly, resembling real water droplets, terrifying to the extreme. Is this the sword intent he released himself? Shan Lingxiu retreated as he spoke. However, he felt that he was lying to himself. That sword intent was clearly something that was naturally formed, a product of the Taotai mine. It was an external source of power, but when your cultivation base was strong enough, it seemed that you could really change its form, causing the sword to become gentler. Seems like one would be able to do this after comprehending the origin of laws. Qin Wentian mumbled. He glanced at Shan Lingxiu. In that case, the Sky Air Empyrean would be able to do this as well. Didn't he tell you about this before? Shan Lingxiu's expression stiffened as his countenance grew increasingly unsightly. Yeah, sometimes, you have to comprehend it yourself. Only then would it truly be yours. If I told you directly, you might end up in a predicament. Although you know about it, you wouldn't be able to comprehend it. Since that's the case, you might as well comprehend it directly. I'm sure the Sky Air Empyrean must have told you many times to sense his strength, right? Qin Wentian sighed. His tone was calm, he didn't exude any arrogance. He was contemplating in his heart as he immersed himself in his own insights. Shut up. Shan Lingxiu coldly spoke. Qin Wentian started but he didn't say anything more. Murong Xiaoxiao was stunned but she still had a smile on her face. She stared at Shan Lingxiu. The truth might not be what we see. I still believe that you are right. This was purely words of flattery. Shan Lingxiu nodded to Murong Xiaoxiao. His proud and vain heart would feel more comfortable only by doing this. Qin Wentian no longer looked at Shan Lingxiu. He was staring at the person who appeared from the abyss. That person was actually squatting there and was sharpening his sword. He placed the sword on the grindstone, allowing the boundless sword chi river to flow on it, causing the surface of the sword to be as smooth as ever. His long hair was in an extremely disheveled state, resembling a madman. He was clad in black robes that were stained with countless bloodstains. His robes were also extremely tattered. He had been sharpening his sword, there were no distractions in his heart. Finally, he inclined his head as a terrifying cold light gleamed in his eyes, incomparably resplendent. That gaze seemed to contain a supreme sword intent that could lacerate everything, penetrating through everything. 1,000 years of sharpening a sword. Today, the sword has been completed. A sharp voice rang out from his mouth. After that, the grindstone fell from the air. He picked up the sword with his palm and with a wave of his hand, the sword that he had sharpened for 1,000 years was directly destroyed by him. 1,000 years of sharpening a sword, the sword was completed, all for the sake of destruction. During these 1,000 years, was he sharpening that sword or was he sharpening his own sword? With a flash of his silhouette, he transformed into a beam of light, resembling a sword. His body was the sword. With a piercing sound, blood splattered out. A figure didn't even have the time to scream before his head was separated from his body. That sword light continued to fly out at the speed of a meteor, like a sword ray. Puff 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 sounds continuously rang out, and one figure after another was slain, directly falling on the spot. Seeing this scene, the crowd was shocked, and their expressions changed. Emperors might erupted from their bodies, and at the same time, they rapidly retreated. Law origin, is this the law intent of swords? Qin Wenqian's heart trembled. What a powerful might! He saw a peak-stage immortal emperor using an extremely powerful defense, manifesting a law domain and creating an indestructible space. However, his defense was directly penetrated by the sword intent, slaying him. There were also experts who used their divine weapons to protect themselves, blocking in front of them. However, the sword light directly disintegrated and flowed along their divine weapons, passing through their divine weapons in an instant, entering the side of their body and killing them. There was no way to block it at all. This expert who walked out from the abyss should already be someone who stood at the unrivaled level in the immortal emperor realm. In fact, he might have already come into contact with the empyreans of the 9 world palaces. 1,000 years of sharpening a sword. After he appeared, he directly used others to test his sword. This person's cultivation speed was almost crazy. In his eyes, there was only his sword. If it wasn't for the protection of his identity, he would have died with a single thought from this madman. Chapter 1647. Are you guys also the grand disciples of the Realm Lord? That madman turned his gaze to Murong Xiao and the others. Before this, these people had always been together with Shan Lingqiu. Hence, he asked this question. If they were really the grand disciples of the Realm Lord, he naturally wouldn't act against them. 1,000 years to sharpen a sword. He had been silent for too long, he had been alone for too long. Now that his sword was formed, he wanted to test it out with his blood and feel the transcendent energy in his body. He felt extremely joyful. Hence, he tossed aside everything, no longer suppressing his impudent heart and started a massacre. We are all good friends of Brother Shan. Murong Xiao and the others spoke. Is that so? The madman glanced at Shan Lingqiu only to see Shan Lingqiu shaking his head. I'm not familiar with them. At this moment, the countenances of Murong Xiao and the others turned as pale as paper. They stared at Shan Lingqiu in rage. This bastard was actually so heartless, wanting to harm them all. Shan Lingqiu himself almost died, he didn't want to antagonize Qin Wenqian anymore. There was no need for him to plead for mercy for these people. Although Murong Xiao was very beautiful, given his status, he wouldn't lack women. Usually, he wouldn't mind it, but at this moment, he couldn't care so much. Also, he had made a fool of himself today, losing all face. It would be better if these people died. Brother Shan, aren't your actions a little too despicable? Said someone from the 4 palaces of the desolate ground. However, as the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying stream of sword energy directly pierced through him. In an instant, a bloody mark appeared on his forehead. As soon as the sound of his voice faded, he collapsed to the ground. At the same time, a terrifying sword light chased after those who wanted to escape. His control over the law of swords has already reached a transcendent level. He could do as he pleased, killing people from 1,000,000 miles away was extremely easy. There was basically no way for them to escape. Still fleeing. Sword Madman coldly laughed, his gaze was extremely terrifying. Senior has already transcended the Immortal Emperor realm. Why must you make things difficult for us? I Ching stared at the madman as he spoke. I like it. That madman laughed. 1,000 years of sharpening a sword. Now that I've finally obtained the Great Tao, how can I not indulge myself? Finally obtained the Great Tao? A voice suddenly rang out. However, comprehending the origin source of the law of swords is equivalent to obtaining the Great Tao. If this is the Great Tao, what is the Realm Lord? This voice was somewhat ear-piercing. Everyone was somewhat astonished. Who would be so daring? They turned their gazes one after another. I Ching and the others actually saw Qin Wentian. They couldn't help but be stunned. This guy actually dared to speak at this time. Was he courting death? The madman also looked at Qin Wentian, revealing a look of interest. There was actually someone who wasn't afraid of death. He smiled and asked, in your opinion, what is the Great Tao? Although one has comprehended the origin of the natural order and possesses extraordinary power, the Great Tao is ethereal. Can this be considered comprehending the Great Tao? Now, Senior has given birth to the Dharmic will, and you can use the Dharmic will to control the will of the rules and do as you please. It can even be said that heaven's will is your will, but can it really be done? Qin Wentian spoke. Leaving aside Senior's cultivation base, even for realm lords, they wouldn't be able to represent the Great Tao of heaven and earth, using their own will to represent heaven's will. I thought that the Great Tao will forever be supreme. Unless there comes a day when I can truly reach the state where heaven's will is my will and my will is heaven's will. My will can cause the world to tremble, my will can control the fate of all lives. If Senior truly obtained the Great Tao, why would there be a need for you to use such brutal methods to deal with everyone here? At that time, only then would you truly be able to control the fate of the world. Why would you use cruel killing methods to prove your own accomplishments? This is merely a minor Tao. The smile on the madman's face grew even more intense. He stared at Qin Wentian and laughed, your comprehension abilities are truly not bad. Before this, you have already comprehended the formless law. Now, I have to admit that your words are logical. I kill people because I want to satisfy my achievement of sharpening my sword for 1,000 years. But so what of it? As long as I like it. Hence, even if what you said is right, I will still kill you. Senior, please enlighten me. Qin Wentian spoke. The madman's gaze froze as he stared at Qin Wentian in astonishment. Please enlighten him. Could it be that Qin Wentian felt that he could fight against him? Seeing the law energy erupting from Qin Wentian, the madman laughed, revealing a row of white teeth, exuding an evil charm. With an intention of his will, a sword river appeared, gushing towards Qin Wentian. That terrifying sword river seemed to want to drown and destroy Qin Wentian completely. Qin Wentian didn't have any sword laws on him. Instead, the Buddhist path's law energy formed an indestructible golden body, transforming into a diamond body that protected his body, impervious to all attacks. The terrifying sword river instantly became extremely sharp, emitting terrifying screeches. However, when it slammed into the Buddhist path's law energy, it was met with a powerful resistance. Although the sword intent continued to corrode, it was unable to directly destroy the Buddhist path's law energy. This was the first time the sword madman encountered such a situation after he sharpened his sword. Killing others would be as easy as blowing off dust. But at this moment, the sword river was actually blocked. The gazes of Murong Xiaoxiao and the others froze as they stared in shock at the scene before them. The Buddhist path's law energy was actually able to block the attack of the madman. This Tianwen was actually so powerful. Before this, when the madman acted against Shan Lingqiu, he easily subdued Shan Lingqiu. The difference in strength between Shan Lingqiu and Qin Wentian could be seen with a single glance. However, not long ago, when the two of them discussed the Tao, they had different opinions. Shan Lingqiu was extremely domineering, suggesting a spar while Qin Wentian evaded. At that time, they all thought that Qin Wentian didn't dare to fight. But from the looks of things now, it seemed a little ironic. Shan Lingqiu was clearly wrong, and his strength was inferior to Qin Wentian's, yet he was still so domineering. Regardless of strength or comprehension, Qin Wentian was stronger compared to Shan Lingqiu, yet Qin Wentian kept a low profile. Thinking of this, the disparity between the two of them was obvious. Yi Qin and the others coldly glanced at Shan Lingqiu, their gazes filled with mockery. This was truly ironic. They followed Shan Lingqiu but were abandoned by him without any hesitation. On the contrary, it was Qin Wentian who spoke at this moment that temporarily resolved the danger they were in. Shan Lingqiu's expression was extremely unsightly. He who had always been lofty, at this moment, seemed extremely insignificant and petty. When he sensed the disdainful gazes of Yi Qin and the others, his expression contorted. That madman had a look of bewilderment on his face when he saw Qin Wentian's defense. He waved his sword and instantly, boundless sword might manifested, slamming into the Buddhist path Dharma body. These swords were either heavy swords that could shake the heavens or sharp swords that were incomparably sharp. Qin Wentian's Buddhist path Dharma body expanded unceasingly. Countless runes flashed within, intersecting with one another, resembling a grand formation. Layers of energy blocked the attacks, but the Buddhist path Dharma body was still shattered. The attacks from the origin source swords were simply too terrifying. Even the golden Vajra body found it hard to endure. One must know that after tens of years of cultivation, Qin Wentian has already broken through to the peak stage of the Immortal Emperor realm. Back then when he was at the mid-stage of the Immortal Emperor realm, he could already defeat many supreme peak stage Empyreans. Given his current cultivation base, supreme emperors couldn't even withstand a single strike from him. All of his astral souls were from the 8th heavenly layer. From this, one could very well imagine how strong his comprehension of laws was. At this moment, Qin Wentian's gigantic Buddhist path Dharma body manifested many arms, expanding in size at the same time, taking the initiative to attack instead of passively defending. Many people felt their hearts trembling. Facing against an expert who had comprehended the source origins of laws, Qin Wentian actually still had the strength to retaliate. The madman's gaze froze as his hair fluttered in the wind. He raised his hand and performed a sword art. Terrifying lotus sword intents manifested in the air, manifesting from the sword river. Numerous sword-shaped lotuses continued to grow, blotting out everything and wrapping around the incoming arms, shredding them into pieces bit by bit. The lotus sword that could annihilate everything shot towards Qin Wentian's body, expanding unceasingly, transforming into a great destructive lotus that could devour everything, wanting to envelop Qin Wentian's body within. Numerous spatial gates appeared in all directions as a terrifying pair of eyes of truth appeared in the air, directly locking onto the madman, instantly sealing him within his domain. Qin Wentian himself then stepped into the spatial gate, vanishing from sight. In the next instant, he appeared before the madman, piercing through the lotus swords. The madman instantly broke free from the spatial domain of the eyes of truth. However, what welcomed him was an incomparably resplendent beam of light. Boom! The sword intent instantly enveloped him, transforming him into a sword. The fist of light blasted out, forcing him back, directly flying into the sword river. His body arched slightly before he stood up straight again. Under his messy long hair, his eyes grew even more terrifying. He was actually forced back by Qin Wentian. The people in the surroundings all felt their hearts trembling as they stared in shock at Qin Wentian. That madman who spent 1,000 years sharpening his sword, using his blood to sharpen his sword. He was numb to killing, yet he was actually blocked by this supreme immortal emperor. You are not Tianwen. You are Qin Wentian, the governor of Lifeire City. Tens of years ago, during the grand banquet of the lifelong realm, Qin Wentian defeated 8 world palace lords and monarchs with a cultivation base at the mid-stage of the immortal emperor realm. Yi Qing suddenly spoke. Although he wasn't there, he had heard of that battle before. Qin Wentian and Di Tian were simply too famous. There were people who described that battle before. Yi Qing thought of Tianwen's name and a thought flashed in his mind. He then thought of Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian. The people from the 4 desolate palaces and Murong Xiaoxiao froze. They have also heard of this name before. This man was known as one of the supreme young immortal emperors with the most potential in the lifelong realm. Compared to him, Shan Lingqiu, who was the top ranker of the lifelong realm 2 years ago, didn't seem to have much weight at all. Chapter 1648. Right now, Qin Wentian was already at the peak stage of the immortal emperor realm. However, his opponent had already transcended mortality and entered sainthood, having comprehended the source origins of laws, transcending mortality and undergoing a qualitative transformation. No matter how strong Qin Wentian's combat prowess was, it was still impossible for him to jump levels and kill Empyreans right now. After fighting against his opponent, Qin Wentian also deeply felt how terrifying characters at this level were. Also, this was merely comprehending the origin source of a single law attribute. If he could comprehend the origin source of multiple laws, how terrifying would that be? The qualitative change would surely overwhelm his transcendent combat prowess. Even if his astral souls were powerful, he would still find it hard to resist. Naturally, if Qin Wentian himself also comprehended the source origins of laws, things would be different. He was confident that he would be able to easily kill this madman before him. Qin Wentian's threatening voice caused the madman to stare at him. An evil smile appeared on his face as he spoke. It's rare for me to meet such an interesting person. Since this is the case, I will spare their lives. However, if you think it's so easy to comprehend the source origins of laws, you are gravely mistaken. I've been sharpening my sword for 1,000 years. Killing them is merely testing my sword. It's fine even if I don't kill them. I'm very curious, how many years do you need to comprehend the source origins of laws? There's no need for Senior to worry about this. Qin Wentian was still smiling. That madman laughed evilly. After that, his silhouette flashed as he transformed into a sword and vanished in the blink of an eye. After he left, the gazes of everyone turned to Qin Wentian as they heaved a sigh of relief. Numerous figures walked over and bowed to Qin Wentian. Many thanks for saving our lives. Senior's strength is truly extraordinary. You are actually able to fight against Empyreans. I'm truly impressed. I've long heard of Brother Qin's name. Now that I've seen you today, not only is your reputation well deserved, my horizons have truly been broadened. Yi Qing walked over and clasped his hands to Qin Wentian. In the past, if I was disrespectful in any way, I hope Brother Qin can forgive me. Today, if it wasn't for Brother Qin saving us, I'm afraid all of us would have died. It's nothing much. Qin Wentian smiled, appearing as easygoing as ever. Brother Qin, you have truly concealed yourself well. If I had known you were so powerful, I would have hugged your thigh tightly. Murong Xiaoxiao walked over and smiled gently. Yi Lian glanced at Murong Xiaoxiao, feeling some disgust in her heart. This woman was truly shameless enough. She didn't know how she managed to cultivate to her current level. Her beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wentian as she felt a sense of melancholy in her heart. Before this, she hadn't noticed that he was actually so handsome. His demeanor was extremely outstanding, and his entire person radiated a brilliant light. Compared to Shan Lingqiu, who was standing below, the two of them basically had no way to be mentioned in the same breath. Shan Lingxiu wasn't qualified to be compared to Qin Wentian. Although Yi Lian loathed how thick-skinned Murong Xiaoxiao was, she also felt an impulse to rush over. At this moment, Qin Wentian spoke to Murong Xiaoxiao, "I've never concealed anything. It's just that Brother Shan is too outstanding, to the extent that even Fairy Murong wants to be friends with you. This is only human nature." Although Qin Wentian had a smile on his face, there was a hint of rejection in his eyes. Upon hearing this, Yi Lian also dispelled the thought of rushing over. That's right. Before this, all of them were hugging Shan Lingxiu, ignoring Qin Wentian. In fact, she even mocked him. Now that they saw that he was powerful, they immediately rushed over. What did this mean? The fact that Qin Wentian was willing to help them earlier could already be considered to be extremely benevolent and magnanimous. If it was someone narrow-minded, they would have already died. Everyone, there's no need to be so polite. Cultivation isn't easy. We came to the Taotai mine for the sake of cultivation. I hope everyone will be able to gain some benefits. Qin Wentian clasped his hands to the crowd. After that, he stepped forward and walked out of the crowd. Everyone opened up a path for him, their eyes filled with gratitude. Murong Xiaoxiao had an awkward expression on her face. She naturally understood that the so-called alliance between them naturally no longer existed. What does he want to do? At this moment, the eyes of everyone flashed as they stared at Qin Wentian. They saw Qin Wentian actually walking into the sword river that cascaded down from the sky. The sword river contained a torrential sword intent, flowing endlessly. Above Qin Wentian, a Dharma body appeared, blocking the corrosion of the sword river. He wants to learn from that madman, using the sword river to temper himself, comprehending the source origins of swords. The hearts of everyone trembled. Before this, when Qin Wentian and Shan Lingxiu discussed the Tao, the topic was the sword. From this point, one could tell that Qin Wentian was proficient in the sword. Also, his comprehension of swords would only be deeper compared to Shan Lingxiu. Since he was proficient in sword intent, why couldn't Qin Wentian do the same, since Jian Fengzi was able to enter the Tao in the abyss back then? The crowd only saw Qin Wentian's body sinking deeper and deeper into the abyss. Finally, he vanished from the vision of everyone. Daring to temper the sword in the abyss, other than having a high enough comprehension ability, one must also have extraordinary strength. If not, they wouldn't be able to resist the corrosion of the sword river and would be directly destroyed. Someone spoke. They could only stay at the side of the sword river, they didn't dare to enter. Numerous figures flashed, each of the experts stood in a corner and continued to comprehend the source origins of the sword river. With the earlier battle with Sword Madman, their desire grew even stronger in their hearts. Naturally, there were some more cautious people who chose to leave. They were worried that Qin Wentian would go crazy and kill his way back. If that was the case, they would be in dire straits. Shan Lingxiu didn't leave either. He walked to the side of the sword river and sat down. His eyes gleamed with a terrifying sharpness. He wanted to regain his lost face. In that case, he had to comprehend the source origins earlier than Qin Wentian, transcending mortality and entering sainthood. Murong Xiaoxiao and the others have already been abandoned by Shan Lingxiu once and were almost killed. They naturally wouldn't bother Shan Lingxiu anymore. The group of them were like strangers, they didn't know each other. Murong Xiaoxiao and the others also didn't dare to take revenge on Shan Lingxiu. No matter how despicable Shan Lingxiu was, his strength was still there. In addition, given his identity as the grand disciple of the Realm Lord, no one would really act against him. In the blink of an eye, several years passed. During these years, Shan Lingxiu had been sitting there, comprehending his sword intent. It was like he wouldn't rest until he reached the path of the sword. Many of those who were saved by Qin Wentian back then were here. Some of them wanted to cultivate while others wanted to leave. But because they wanted to see Qin Wentian one more time and see when he would come out, they chose to stay and continue comprehending. Sometimes, curiosity was also a powerful driving force. In the depths of the abyss, a figure was enveloped in light, resembling a screen of light. When the sword river cascaded onto the screen, the sword river transformed into droplets of sword intent that seeped into Qin Wentian's body. However, Qin Wentian felt a terrifying sharpness, wanting to destroy everything in his body. Qin Wentian finally understood why the clothes of the madman earlier were tattered and there were so many bloodstains on his body. Clearly, that madman was the same as him, enduring this inhumane pain. Not only was he comprehending, he was also using his flesh and blood to sharpen his sword. Could it be that after he achieved the path of the sword, he would indulge himself to do whatever he wanted and start a massacre? Most probably, this process was too painful and he had suppressed himself for too long. He wanted to go crazy for a moment. Fresh blood appeared at the corner of Qin Wentian's lips. A look of agony could be seen on his face, but he still endured it. Only by personally experiencing the power of the source origin of the sword would he be able to sense it more clearly. By repeating this, Qin Wentian comprehended it bit by bit. He could feel the sharpness of the sword, the tyranny of the sword, and the gentleness of the sword. The source origin of the law contained many different forms of the law. As long as you were strong enough, you would be able to control them all. The sword intent would be your own will. However, knowing was one thing, truly comprehending and comprehending it was another matter. Time continued to flow by. Qin Wentian's comprehension of the law grew increasingly deeper. His cultivation base continued to stabilize, truly reaching the peak of the immortal emperor realm. It was as though he was only a step away from comprehending the source origin of the laws. Today, Qin Wentian stood there as the river of swords flowed past him. Right now, he no longer resisted and was completely immersed in the river of swords. His white robes were already stained with blood, but right now, when the river of swords flowed past him, he didn't move at all. There was no longer the pain he felt in the past. He merely closed his eyes, appearing incomparably serene, as though he had entered a wondrous state. Why was it that the river of swords didn't injure him? The source origin of the sword contained many different forms of the sword. If he could truly sense the gentleness of the sword, this sword naturally wouldn't be able to injure him. More importantly, this indicated that he could already faintly control the form of the sword. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian seemed to be completely unaware of this. He was still immersed in his own world, as though he was in a state of enlightenment. It has already been over 10 years since Qin Wentian entered the Taotai mine. Today, the river of swords continued to cascade down like in the past, flowing through Qin Wentian's body. Qin Wentian, who had his eyes closed, finally opened them as a faint smile could be seen in his resplendent eyes. Raising his head, Zhang Xian saw that the river of swords was flowing in reverse, going against the flow and heading up into the sky. At this moment, in the surroundings of the river of swords, there were still many experts. One batch left and another batch came. Shan Lingxiu, Murong Xiaoxiao and the others were still here. Shan Lingxiu was filled with reluctance in his heart. Before he comprehended the sword Dao, he vowed not to leave. At this moment, the gazes of everyone froze. All of them stared in terror at the scene below. They only saw a terrifying aura gushing over. In the next instant, all of them retreated explosively. They saw a heavenly river of swords flowing upwards, resembling a desolate primordial beast, gushing towards the sky, transforming into a fearsome tempest. As long as a wisp of the tempest's intent gushed out, it might be able to kill an immortal emperor. Everyone who retreated to the distance stared at the storm in front of them. In the next moment, their eyes froze again. In the center of the sword storm, there was actually a figure standing there. He was dressed in white and was stained with blood. He stood in the center of the sword storm like a true god that would be worshipped by all living beings. Chapter 1649 This scene was somewhat similar to the madman who appeared in the past. Those who had witnessed the madman's breakthrough before understood. Qin Wentian had stepped into that level, transcending mortality and entering sainthood, transcending immortal emperors. How terrifying! Many people felt their hearts trembling. Murong Xiao and the others stared in shock at Qin Wentian. Tens of years ago, he was merely a mid-stage immortal emperor during the lifelong grand banquet. Now, in just tens of years, he had broken through consecutively, breaking through the limits of the peak stage of the immortal emperor realm, stepping into this realm that countless people yearned for. As for that madman, he was said to have sharpened his sword for 1,000 years. From this, one could very well imagine how terrifying the disparity between them was. This is what comprehension is. Maybe, although he is at the mid-stage of the immortal emperor realm, his comprehension has already surpassed many peak-stage immortal emperors or even transcendent-stage immortal emperors. For example, Shan Lingqiu. Back then when the two of them discussed the sword Dao, Qin Wentian clearly had a deeper comprehension of the sword compared to Shan Lingqiu. Congratulations, senior. Yi Qin spoke. Right now, he didn't even refer to Qin Wentian as Brother Qin, he should refer to him as senior instead. In the cultivation world, the strong were always revered. As for age, it wasn't something that could be seen with one's eyes. In addition, it didn't mean that he had to respect you just because you have lived longer. For example, in the lifelong realm, there might be some old fellows who had lived longer than the lifelong realm lord. But could it be that the realm lord would have to bow to them as juniors? Unless it was to the elders of his clan or to people he deeply respected. Only then would he do so. For example, if Qin Wentian met some elders with lower cultivation bases, he would still refer to them as senior. This was a form of respect. But for strangers, he naturally wouldn't use age to determine seniority. It was strength. There's a difference in seniority in comprehending the Tao. But only those who can become an Empyrean are truly extraordinary. Someone sighed. In the past, I've heard that when one reached the peak stage of the immortal emperor realm, their cultivation base would already be at the peak of perfection. If one wants to take that final step, it can no longer be achieved by increasing one's cultivation base. Instead, it has to depend on one's comprehension. Some people could comprehend it in a single move while others couldn't. Now that senior has stepped into the Empyrean realm, this point has been verified. Yeah, before this, senior Qin was already at the peak stage of the immortal emperor realm. But now, by relying on his comprehension abilities, he managed to reach this step in a mere 10+ years. We are all filled with admiration for him. Everyone's attitude changed again. 10 years ago, they were grateful to Qin Wentian for saving their lives, and they were already in awe of his powerful combat prowess. But now, they regarded Qin Wentian as a figure of another level. In their eyes, there was only respect for extraordinary figures. After Qin Wentian took this step, it meant that there was a real gap between them and a figure of another world. Although Qin Wentian had only comprehended a single law attribute, given his talent, since he could comprehend a single law attribute within 10+ years, most probably, he would be able to comprehend the other laws sooner or later. At that time, he would be a character on equal footing with the Empyreans of the 9 world palaces. Characters at that level were naturally lofty existences. Hence, the respect they had for Qin Wentian was extremely natural. Only Shan Lingqiu had a gloomy expression on his face. He only felt pain and torment in his heart. He had always been cultivating here, hoping that he would be able to break through one day. However, only 10+ years had passed. To cultivators at their level, this period of time was extremely short. He still hadn't comprehended anything yet Qin Wentian had already broken through. When he thought of this, he felt extremely depressed. However, this was merely Shan Lingqiu's personal feeling. Qin Wentian didn't even glance at him. He stood in the storm and nodded lightly to everyone. After that, his silhouette flashed as he transformed into a beam of sword light and vanished from sight, directly leaving this place. Upon seeing Qin Wentian leaving, everyone felt a sense of disappointment and frustration. Their hearts had yet to calm down. Breaking through to the Empyrean realm within 10+ years. This was simply too terrifying. If Qin Wentian had already comprehended for many years, they might still be able to understand. However, they had all heard that tens of years ago, Qin Wentian was only at the mid-stage of the Immortal Emperor realm. However, Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't care about the thoughts of everyone. His entire person was like a beam of sword light, shuttling through the air. Not long after, he arrived at a flaming mountain. This flaming mountain exuded a terrifying heat, and in the center of the flaming mountain, there seemed to be a startling red color that resembled fresh blood. The redness caused one's heart to tremble. Qin Wentian enveloped his body with his sword intent. The sword law energy around him was like a layer of armor, enveloping him within. He stepped out step by step, entering the flaming mountain and arriving at the center. Over here, there were many rocks that resembled fresh blood. The surroundings were filled with a blood-red gas. There were no other types of energy here, only flames could exist. Qin Wentian used his sword to pick them up before tossing them away. Qin Wentian must have cultivated some kind of avatar technique. This avatar technique is extremely powerful, allowing one to temporarily possess his aura. Zhuge Xiong spoke. In an instant, the Li-Fire Empyrean's eyes flashed with an incomparably resplendent light. Zhuge Xiong's words seemed to have enlightened him. It was like everything was about to become clear. He felt that there was a very high possibility that this was the truth. Upon thinking of this, the Li-Fire Empyrean's eyes narrowed as killing intent flashed in his eyes. Chapter 1650. Zhuge Xiong's words were completely possible. There were many powerful avatar techniques in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Even if the two were separated by millions of miles, they could still appear at the same time and exist for a very long period of time. In fact, there were even some heaven-defying avatar techniques that could allow the avatar to fight at the same level as the original body. As to why they didn't think of this before, it was because this was a blind spot. When the Jialan monarch died, Qin Wentian appeared in the governor's manner. Very naturally, they wouldn't suspect him. However, Zhuge Xiong was extremely intelligent and had always been the brains of the Li-Fire Palace. He was highly regarded by the Li-Fire Empyrean, and after his investigations, he discovered that there was no way to continue investigating the Jialan monarch's death. This would become an unsolvable case. In addition, the only clue to this unsolved case was actually in Heavenly City. Hence, Zhuge Xiong had no choice but to reanalyze the situation and suspect the person who killed the Jialan monarch. He wanted to see if he could completely eliminate Qin Wentian's suspicions. After that, he discovered that Qin Wentian had a high possibility of killing the Jialan monarch. As long as he had an avatar, there was no way for him to continue investigating this unsolved case. Qin Wentian was the greatest suspect, hence the conversation today. The Li-Fire Empyrean seemed to have been enlightened by Zhuge Xiong's words. He felt that this was the truth. Immediately summon all the governors other than Qin Wentian here for a discussion. The Li-Fire Empyrean coldly spoke. Yes. Zhuge Xiong nodded. After that, he took out his messaging crystal and summoned all the governors. Upon receiving Zhuge Xiong's command, all the governors appeared in the Li-Fire Palace and were brought to the Great Hall where the Li-Fire Empyrean resided. In this region, everyone was a trusted aide of the Li-Fire Empyrean. Palace Lord, Grand Governor, what happened? Central Governor Sun Qian asked. He could sense that the atmosphere was somewhat different. The Li-Fire Empyrean and Grand Governor seemed to have something important to announce. Zhuge, these people are all old people. Tell them what you said to me earlier. The Li-Fire Empyrean spoke. Zhuge Xiong nodded and told everyone about his suspicions. After hearing his words, the eyes of all the governors flashed. The habitual smile on Beauty Zhao's face vanished as her expression turned heavy. One couldn't help but say that Zhuge Xiong's suspicions were very possible. Even for them, they faintly believed it. One must know that back then when the Zhelan monarch died, almost everyone suspected that the killer was Qin Wentian. But because Qin Wentian appeared in the governor's manor, everyone dispelled their suspicions. But if it was like what Zhuge Xiong guessed, Qin Wentian had an avatar technique, there was no need to doubt this matter anymore. What do you all think? The Li-Fire Empyrean asked. We still can't be certain that Governor Qin has an avatar. Palace Mistress, your subordinate feels that this isn't too appropriate. Beauty Xiao spoke. Beauty Xiao, just because Governor Qin is handsome, you want to speak up for him? Yin Qiu spoke in a neutral tone. Oh yeah, back then in Lifelong City, Governor Qin even helped you resolve the humiliation from the Sword Spirit Sect's Xiao clan. I'm just stating the facts. What do you mean by this? Beauty Xiao stared at Yin Qiu. Right now, Yin Qiu had already given up on Beauty Xiao. This woman had always looked down on him. Since this was the case, there was no need for him to be polite. Everyone knows that the Zhelan monarch died. The possibility of Qin Wentian being the culprit is the highest. Given the strength he displayed back then in Lifelong City, as well as his attack-type innate techniques, it wouldn't be strange even if he hid an avatar. There's an 80 to 90% chance that the Zhelan monarch was killed by him. You are the first to speak up for him. Don't tell me you have already hooked up with him. Yin Qiu mocked. He and Qin Wentian had never been on good terms. Enough. The Li-Fire Empyrean couldn't help but interrupt when he saw the two of them arguing. Speak the truth, don't argue. Lin Ba, Sun Qian, what do you two think? Palace Lord, this subordinate will completely respect Palace Lord's decision. Sun Qian spoke, purely bootlicking. However, his bootlicking was very appropriate because he knew that since the Li-Fire Empyrean gathered them here to discuss this matter, it definitely wasn't just to ask for their opinions. Zhuge Xiong has already said that there was no way to investigate this matter. In that case, everything would depend on a single thought. Sun Qian was able to sit in the central governor's position after Xia Ho. He was naturally an extremely intelligent person. Although he appeared amicable on the surface, he was actually very astute. I can't exclude that possibility. Lin Ba's reply conformed to the norm, he didn't dare to confirm nor deny. The various governors all had different opinions. Their gazes all landed on the Li-Fire Empyrean. There was no evidence. Ultimately, no matter what the Li-Fire Empyrean thinks, it would be the truth. Since this matter had already become an unresolved case, if the Li-Fire Empyrean said that Qin Wentian was the killer, he would be the killer. If he said he wasn't, he wouldn't be the killer. Everything would depend on a single thought. Beauty Zhao's beautiful eyes were filled with nervousness. Right now, Qin Wentian's wings had yet to fully grow. If the Li-Fire Empyrean wanted to deal with him, things would truly be dire. No one is allowed to leak this matter out. For the past few times when the tributes are due, Qin Wentian didn't return but sent someone over instead. Right now, the deadline of 10 years is almost here. Zhuge Xiong, send a message to him that he has to personally make a trip to the Li-Fire Palace on the day of the tributes. I have something to discuss with him. The Li-Fire Empyrean slowly spoke. After that, the eyes of everyone flashed. They all understood that this sentence of the Li-Fire Empyrean was equivalent to announcing his attitude and his decision. Qin Wentian was going to be in dire straits. The Li-Fire Empyrean wanted to deal with him, nipping the threat in the cradle. They all understood that if the Zhelan monarch was killed by Qin Wentian, given how impulsive this man was, he would definitely kill the Li-Fire Empyrean sooner or later when he had enough strength. Back then, the Zhelan monarch was the one who carried out the mission, but the order was given by the Li-Fire Palace. They even sent experts to coordinate with him. Palace Lord, the current Qin Wentian is different from the past. Back then, during the grand banquet in the lifelong realm, even the realm lord regarded him highly. Wouldn't it be too inappropriate? Wouldn't it affect the realm lord's opinion of you? Yin Xiu seemed to be very loyal, thinking for the Lifire Empyrean. However, Beauty Xiao coldly glanced at him. This was clearly trying to provoke the Lifire Empyrean. The Lifire Empyrean coldly glanced at Yin Xiu, causing him to shiver. It was like the Lifire Empyrean had seen through him. On the day of tribute, all of you will come as well. At that time, I will ask Qin Wentian about this matter. You guys will be the witnesses. A governor disguised as a bandit and killed the monarch of my Lifire Palace. This is already considered a traitor, betraying the Lifire Palace and the lifelong realm. He shall be executed on the spot. The Lifire Empyrean coldly spoke. Yes, Palace Lord. Yin Xiu bowed. Yes, Palace Lord. Lin Ba and Sun Qian bowed as well. This was the Lifire Palace, who would dare to defy the Lifire Empyrean's words. He wanted to deal with Qin Wentian. In that case, no matter how outstanding Qin Wentian was, there was nothing he could do to reverse the situation. If there was no Jelon Monarch, things would still be fine. The Lifire Empyrean wouldn't be able to find an excuse to deal with him and he wouldn't be able to answer to the lifelong Saint Hall. However, the Jelon Monarch's death was undoubtedly the best excuse. Yes, Palace Lord. Beauty Xiao nodded as well. Zhuge Xiong glanced at them. If anyone leaks the news today, you guys should know the consequences. The Lifire Empyrean calmly glanced at them. He was confident that no one would dare to leak his orders. He has controlled the Lifire Palace for so many years and he naturally had this bit of prestige. In addition, these people wouldn't betray him for the sake of a mere Qin Wentian. This was simply courting death. Go on. The Lifire Empyrean waved his hand. After that, everyone bowed and retreated. After Beauty Xiao left the Lifire Palace, she sped along the way. She took out her messaging crystal and sent her immortal sense in, reply quickly. What's the matter? A voice rang out in Beauty Xiao's mind. She sent another message into her messaging crystal, if Zhuge Xiong looks for you, don't reply no matter what. He and the Lifire Empyrean guessed that you might have cultivated an avatar technique and the one who killed the Jelon Monarch is you. The Lifire Empyrean wants to deal with you. After her voice rang out, the other side fell silent for a moment before a reply rang out, got it. Be careful. Beauty Xiao replied. After that, she kept her messaging crystal and continued on her way. A moment later, she heard another voice, thank you. Upon hearing this voice, Beauty Xiao smiled sweetly. Her sexy red lips curled up in a suggestive manner. As expected, not long after Beauty Xiao sent the news to Qin Wentian, Zhuge Xiong also sent a message to him. Qin Wentian didn't reply. He knew that earlier, Beauty Xiao was fighting against time with Zhuge Xiong. If Zhuge Xiong sent the message first and he replied, it would mean that he already knew about it. But now, as long as he didn't reply, the Lifire Empyrean and Zhuge Xiong could only suspect him. There were many possibilities if he didn't reply. For example, he might be in danger or he might have lost his messaging crystal. Since Qin Wentian knew about it, Di Tian naturally also knew about it. Right now, he wasn't in Lifire City but was in Lifelong City instead. Today, the Xianyuan clan hosted a banquet and invited Di Tian. The Emperor Pavilion was already flourishing in Lifire City. Right now, Di Tian was already expanding his influence in Lifelong City. There was no need to mention the Jelon clan, the Xianyuan clan also wanted to form a connection with him. In that case, it was naturally very easy for him to form a connection with them. Right now, Di Tian already rarely dealt with the matters of the Emperor Pavilion in Lifire City. All of them were handed over to his subordinates. Other than cultivating, he would occasionally appear in the various peak powers to socialize. Grandmaster D, what are you thinking about? At this moment, an expert from the Shenyuan clan asked. Di Tian's eyes flashed under the mask as he smiled, nothing much. However, in truth, he felt some fluctuations in his heart. He didn't expect that Zhuge Xiong would actually be able to guess that it was an avatar. Although he was certain that there wouldn't be any evidence for this, if the Li-Fire Empyrean was determined to kill him, there was no need for any evidence. He could just directly push the blame onto him. Seems like I have to make preparations in advance. Di Tian mused. Chapter 1651. Zhuge Xiong had no way to contact Qin Wentian. No matter what he said, there was no reply from Qin Wentian's side. He also personally went to the northern governor's manor and told the evil emperor and the others to contact Qin Wentian. However, the evil emperor tried to contact Qin Wentian in front of him, but he still failed. Also, from the expression of the evil emperor at that time, he seemed to be worried, afraid that something might have happened to Qin Wentian. Hence, this became another mystery. Right now, what happened to Qin Wentian exactly? Did he intentionally not reply to their messages, or did he lose his messaging crystal? Their plan was foiled because of Qin Wentian's lack of reply. In addition, they had no other solutions. For this round of tribute, Qin Wentian still didn't show up. It was the evil emperor who brought his subordinates over and paid the same amount of tribute. Right now, in the northern city regions, there were no powers that dared to pay less tribute to the governor's manor. Although Qin Wentian wasn't around, the prestige of the governor's manor was no longer the same as before. Not only did the plan fail this time around, for the next few tributes, Qin Wentian didn't show up at all. This also meant that Qin Wentian had already been out for tens of years and there was no news of him at all. It was like he had completely vanished. Every time the Li-Fire Empyrean thought of this, he would feel extremely unhappy and worried. Could it be that someone betrayed him? According to logic, those governors shouldn't have the guts to do so. After all, in the Li-Fire Palace, he was the one with the final say. No one would be able to oppose him. Those governors were very clear of the consequences of betraying him. In addition, Qin Wentian was famous in Li-Fire City for not interacting with others. Even if Beauty Xiao wanted to curry favor with him, she wouldn't be able to do so. Given Beauty Xiao's shrewd personality, if something happened to Qin Wentian, she wouldn't hesitate to abandon him and stand on his side. Right now, not only was the Li-Fire Empyrean worried about Qin Wentian, he was also worried about another person. That person was none other than Di Tian, the supervisory commander of the Li-Fire Palace who was rewarded by the Realm Lord. During these years, Di Tian's development was simply too fast. He was different from Qin Wentian who kept a low profile and endured silently. His Emperor Pavilion's development could be said to be godly. Because of the lifelong Realm Lord's words, all the major powers were willing to aid them in their development. Right now, the power of the Emperor Pavilion in Li-Fire City had already surpassed the Jialan clan. It was just that their foundations weren't as deep as the Jialan clan. Also, there wasn't an existence at the Immortal Emperor realm among them. However, the Emperor Pavilion still caused the Li-Fire Empyrean to feel somewhat uncomfortable. In his territory, just the Jialan clan alone was enough. Now, the Emperor Pavilion has also appeared and he couldn't interfere. What made him unhappy was that the Emperor Pavilion's relationship with the Jialan clan was very close, even closer than him, the Li-Fire Empyrean. In the western city regions of Li-Fire City. Right now, the Emperor Pavilion has already expanded to this location and had a great amount of influence in the western city regions. Today, Di Tian personally came to the western city regions and gathered many major and minor powers here. He then prepared a banquet and invited the leaders of the major powers here. The banquet was extremely lively. Di Tian sat in the host's seat. He was still wearing a mask and had a smile in his eyes. He stared at the people below and spoke. The Emperor Pavilion has already developed for many years in the western city regions. This time around, the reason why I invited everyone to this banquet is because I wish to find a few major powers to cooperate with me. In that case, my Emperor Pavilion would be able to develop even faster. Di Tian's words instantly caused the hearts of many experts to pound with excitement. Right now, as long as the various city regions had a connection with the Emperor Pavilion, they would be able to soar to greater heights. This was especially so for the Mo clan that had a good relationship with Grandmaster D. Right now, the Mo clan has already become one of the peak powers in the central city regions. The Yen clan that was as famous as the Mo clan was no longer around, and the other clans that specialized in formations were all swallowed up by the Emperor Pavilion. However, only first-tier powers are willing to cooperate with my Emperor Pavilion. I wonder which power is willing to do so. Di Tian asked. My Nye clan is willing to cooperate with the Emperor Pavilion. My Violet Thunder Pavilion is also willing to develop together with Grandmaster D. Many first-tier powers spoke. Di Tian smiled and nodded. I didn't expect everyone to support me so much. It's really hard for me to choose. Grandmaster D. At this moment, someone spoke. Although my He clan isn't a first-tier power, in truth, our strength and assets aren't inferior to a first-tier power. I hope Grandmaster D can consider this. Oh. Is that so? Di Tian laughed. I've also heard of the He clan. I heard that the He clan of the western city regions produces many beauties. I wonder if the rumors are true or false. If Grandmaster D is interested, you can come to my He clan anytime. That elder from the He clan smiled, revealing a meaningful smile. He heard that Grandmaster D had many beauties wooing him, but he didn't marry anyone. Most probably, this man was too arrogant. Even for the young misses of the various clans, he felt that they weren't qualified to marry him. However, those women most probably already had relations with him. If not, why would he be so close to the Jialan clan? Why would he help the Mo clan to grow into a transcendent power? Since this was the case, if there was a woman from the He clan who could have a relationship with Di Tian, he wouldn't mind it. Sacrificing one person to strengthen the He clan, why not? In addition, it wouldn't be too bad if she could become Grandmaster D's woman. After all, Jialan Chuyue of the Jialan clan had always been sticking close to Grandmaster D. Right, if there's a chance, I will definitely go there. Di Tian revealed a meaningful smile to that elder from the He clan. After that, he asked with some bewilderment, it's just that, does the He clan really have such a strong power and assets? Why is it not a first-tier power? Grandmaster D, is there even a need to ask? Someone from the other powers laughed. Grandmaster D, you've already said that the He clan has many beauties. Our Lord Governor would also frequently visit the He clan. A few people laughed. The experts from the He clan smiled but didn't say anything. Oh, no wonder. Since this is the case, I will consider the He clan as well. It's just that this Governor Yin, isn't he worried that the palace lord would blame him? A look of enlightenment appeared on Di Tian's face as he shook his head and bitterly smiled. Huh, Grandmaster D is too naive. Someone laughed uproariously. What do you mean? Di Tian asked. Let's not talk about this anymore. In any case, these are all rules that stick to convention. That person laughed and waved his hands. Understood, understood. Di Tian nodded. It's just that I wonder how good the relationship between the He clan and Governor Yin is. If my Emperor Pavilion can gain the support of the Governor's manor, things would definitely be smoother. Grandmaster D, there's no need to worry. My He clan has an extremely good relationship with Governor Yin. That expert from the He clan laughed. Since this is the case, let me ask one more thing. Does the He clan really have the strength of a first-tier power? Di Tian asked. Emichim, I can confirm that. Everyone here can testify as well. That expert from the He clan laughed. Upon hearing his words, Di Tian smiled and nodded, "Men, come over." A figure flashed and appeared beside Di Tian, respectfully greeting, "Pavilion Lord. Help me make a trip to the governor's manor and invite Governor Yin Qiu to attend the banquet." Di Tian spoke. That person nodded and retreated, departing this place. "Grandmaster Di, why did you invite Governor Yin Qiu over?" That expert from the He clan asked in puzzlement. "Everyone will know when he comes." Di Tian's smile was filled with deep meaning. "Come, let us continue drinking." The group of them drank and chatted happily. After 3 rounds of wine, they all felt more familiar with each other. Hence, their words became more casual and casual. After some time, Yin Qiu brought his men over. When he saw how lively the banquet was, he couldn't help but to frown. This was his western city regions. Di Tian gathered all the major powers here and seemed to be very familiar with them. There has always been a barrier between him and Di Tian. Back then when Di Tian wanted to act against Xia Ho, he had already objected. "Governor Di, why didn't you say anything before coming to my western city regions? I would have welcomed you well." Yin Qiu smiled. Di Tian calmly sat there, glancing at him as he smiled. "Earlier when I was chatting with everyone here, I just so happened to talk about Governor Yin. Hence, I invited Governor Yin to make a trip here." "What did they talk about?" Yin Qiu smiled as he glanced at everyone. "We talked about how Governor Yin Qiu would often visit the He clan and their relationship is very good. Also, the He clan said that they have the strength and scale of a first-tier power but they are only classified as a third-tier power. This truly broadened my horizons." Di Tian laughed. Yin Qiu's expression instantly changed. He stared at that expert from the He clan and berated, "What nonsense are you talking about? The He clan has the strength of a first-tier power. How dare you boast in front of Governor Di Tian? You simply don't know the immensity of the heavens and earth." The expression of that expert from the He clan changed. He could sense that the atmosphere suddenly changed. Something was amiss. In the crowd, there was an expert who lowered his head as a cold smile flashed in his eyes. In the past, he had participated in the Emperor Pavilion's banquet. It was none other than the banquet that determined Governor Xia Ho's fate. At that time, Governor Yin Qiu objected to Governor Di Tian's opinion and Di Tian was also the governor of the Law Enforcement Division. Today's conversation had a deeper meaning to it. Earlier, he even intentionally or unintentionally tried to instigate Di Tian. What was laughable was that the He clan's elder was still immensely pleased with himself. "That's right, it was I who was boasting. I hope Grandmaster Di Tian won't blame me." That elder from the He clan reacted very quickly, instantly changing his words. "In that case, does this mean that the He clan is only a third-tier power? That's why the governor's manor classified the He clan as a third-tier power?" Di Tian asked. "That's right." Yin Qiu replied. Di Tian laughed. He turned his gaze behind him only to see a few figures flying over. One of them bowed, "Lord Governor, earlier we've already investigated. The He clan's businesses are definitely a first-tier power." "MHM," Di Tian nodded. He lifted his wine cup and drank a mouthful. His black eyes flashed with sharpness as he stared at Yin Qiu. "Governor Yin, do you know your crime?" Yin Qiu's heart sank. Di Tian clearly came with ill intentions. Clearly, Di Tian was here to deal with him. This bastard, wasn't it enough to deal with Xia Ho? Did he want to target Yin Qiu as well? Could it be that Di Tian didn't know that the governors of the various governors' manors were all personally appointed by the Li-Fire Empyrean? This meant that they were all subordinates of the Li-Fire Empyrean. Was it really because of a personal grudge that Di Tian acted against them? Or could it be that he was challenging the authority of the Li-Fire Empyrean? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.